Because you got powerful legs. How'd you get the physique? Was it gym or how'd you get the physique?
I've always been.
She's actually not got powerful legs. Do you shower in your dressing room? Do you have a shower on the day of a fight or not? Tell us about the tattoos.
Shut the fuck up, you little prick.
But then I've got the Phoenix.
Hey, prick.
So I'll take it from Bob every day of the week.
Absolute disgrace.
I sure no one will mind.
Move him out of here, there.
Ricky Hatton didn't go over for his fighter because he risked getting abducted and sold into sexual
I never said that.
Both have been rape victims. I'm not watching Frank Buglioni live on Saturday night. You're out of your mind.
Jesus Christ, get yourself a life.
He's actually a priest.
Yeah.
It's because his brother John Fury eye gouged him.
What have I told you all this time? He's going to end up sucked out, fucked out, looking for a handout.
Boxing nutters messenger group. I'm gonna be the king.
J-Pump. You know what I'm saying?
Welcome, everybody, to the 574th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse. Proud member of the Sports Social Network, and you can find us everywhere that you get your podcasts. We come in live on YouTube at 8 p.m. every Sunday in the UK, and that would be coming on at 3 o'clock Pacific time in the United States, 12 or East Coast time, 12 o'clock Pacific. I'm somewhere in the middle there. Along with us today, Andy Patterson, Dez, and Ozzie Smith. I wonder if Ozzie only shows up for the big fights, or if it's only a big fight if Ozzie shows up. I don't know. Chicken or the egg, I guess. Chicken or the egg. But Ozzie, we're happy to have you here. That was a hell of a good fight that we had last night from Leeds, with Jack Catterall taking a fairly wide decision victory over Josh Taylor in a fight where I thought after 8 rounds it was probably even or 5-3 to Catterall. And I thought they split those last 4 rounds, which would have, set me at a draw, 115-113. What I thought was a close fight. Judges disagreed. 117-111 2 times, 116-113 for one of the cards there. And Taylor seemed really to be coming back in the fight after taking a little bit of a beating at moments earlier in the fight, coming back in the middle rounds, really started to work Catterall. Catterall looking like he was running out of gas until in the 11th round, he landed a hard left hand that completely turned the tides, giving those last 2 rounds, sending those last 2 rounds in his direction to secure what I thought was at least a draw or a slight or slim decision victory for Catterall. But Ozzie turned out he didn't even need those 2 cards when it came to what the judges were seeing. Did you think the fight was more in line with the judges, or did you see more of the competitive ebb and flow contest that I was watching?
Yeah, so I thought the 117-111 cards were quite wide, personally. I had it a bit closer than that, but I always felt Catterall was in control of the fight. Of course, Taylor had some good moments and definitely won rounds. However, I thought he dictated the pace of the fight. I thought his jab was excellent, and that kind of controlled everything. Very like ramrod jab, and straight away he was able to establish it. And I think Taylor was having to force the fight to have success. I mean, I watched it in a pub in Chorley, surrounded by absolute morons who were lashed up and sniffing all sorts and that sort of stuff. Who you see one punch and you hear just obscenity shouted towards it, so they didn't really have a clue. But I think 115, 113 is okay. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with 116, 112. I thought personally Jack dominated largely the first half of the fight, and then Taylor certainly came back, and that big left hand in the 11th certainly changed the tide of it. And I think the last couple of rounds pretty much secured it for Catterall. Excellent performance from Catterall. I think he showed that he's certainly improved since the last fight, whereas Taylor's probably, it's hard to say, certainly not the fighter he was, but it's hard to be critical for what he has achieved in the sport. I thought both looked good at the weight, whereas I think previously we've seen Taylor look particularly incredibly gaunt on the scales, and at times Catterall's not looked fantastic either, whereas they both look good, and it was a really, really good fight. I'm always wary of rematches sometimes, that they can potentially be a bit of a stinker. However, I was pleasantly surprised. I thought Catterall displayed skill, showing that defensively very, very good again. Kept calm whilst Taylor was throwing shots, and particularly with his back on the ropes. And yeah, I'm not too fussed about seeing a trilogy, in all honesty. It's one of those, I do feel like if Catterall's next fight, they've got to do everything they can to try and get him a world title shot. As for Taylor,
is that because Ozzy, you feel like he won the first fight too? Just in your heart, you're like he's 2-0 in my mind. He doesn't.
Me personally, yes, and as well, I think people forget, like, Catterall has not been a world champion yet either. He's only boxed for a world title once, and that was against Josh Taylor.
The only person who's had a worst period since the first Taylor fight was Catterall. I mean, both of their resumes post that fight have been just awful.
Yeah, rubbish ultimately, and it does kind of in a way summarize Jack's career as a whole. Realistically, kind of tick over fights rather than necessarily meaningful ones. And obviously, this Taylor fight's been delayed a couple of times. But no, I think like with DAZN backing him, and Hearn's holds a lot of cards in the 140 division and has good relationships where fights can be made. I certainly like to see that happening next for Catterall. And as for Taylor, I'd like to see him go up in weight. I think he can be a force there. Despite him making it well, you can still make the weight, but it still takes a lot out of you. And I'd be interested to see what Taylor looks like at 147. I'm not saying he needs to jump in, at the top level, but like a European level fight, and just see how it goes more than anything. But no, to finish, I think it's fair to say Catterall has been a victim from where some of his fights can be a bit of a stinker, and he doesn't necessarily go through the gears. I thought last night he showed that he did go through the gears, not necessarily to get him out of there, but he showed that he had more than one, just more than plan A or plan B. I think he showed at times plan C, plan D, and a hell of a lot more, and adapted. Maybe fatigued towards the end of it, but it's rare you see, every fighter's got a fantastic engine, and they're as fit as they were in round one. But overall, a very, very good night. And whilst two of the cards were certainly wide, I still feel it was the right man who won. A bit like last week, in my opinion, from where it was a close fight, but Usyk was a fair winner. And this week again, for me, it was a close fight, but Jack Catterall was a fair winner.
Yeah, no, I like that analogy too. I was kind of thinking about that myself, and now the bigger man kind of came on, started imposing themselves, landing some body shots. Yeah, there was definitely some similarities with this fight and Fury versus Usyk. Been an interesting couple of weeks. Andy, I think that obviously the Scottish fans have to be disappointed with this, and even though he showed his moments coming back, this is definitely not the same Josh Taylor as 5 years ago, and it's not like talking he slipped a bit. I think he slipped substantially, Andy.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from, to be honest, mate. I mean, obviously the fight last night was far better and competitive than the first one. I think everybody can agree on that one. Taylor was clearly more focused, probably more in the mindset for it, shall I say. One thing that I tend to notice is Josh's output, especially on the inside, I don't think Catterall's got much of an inside game. He looks to like kind of like hold. They look to get separated. I did think he was feeling some of those body assaults pretty early in the fight, Catterall. But I just don't think Josh was able to sustain it for long periods. And I was like looking at him at times that he was obviously hunting it, and he just couldn't get some of the shots off. I don't think. I think that's part of it as well. You know, if you look at him in his early part of his career, that once he got you up against the ropes, or got you trapped in the corner, he was teeing off on you, head and body up and down, and he was ready to go again. I think also as well part of his style is because it's hyper aggressive, high output. It's got a shelf life. We said that with Jarrett Hurd and that as well. He had a shelf life of, was it 2 years his prime? Could say that a combination of the wars he's been in, the weight making as well, maybe a wee bit of the bad living's kind of catch up as well a little bit. I mean, if you seen him walk before he got into the ring there last night, he looks like an old 30. What is he? 33, 34. Very, very looking very old about the face and that as well. So again, that could be doing to like obviously bad. The face fills up pretty bad. He's had bad cuts in the past. But yeah, I would agree. He's no completely washed, but he's certainly no what he was. I maybe slightly disagree with what Ozzy's saying about moving at 147 and being a force. Again, I think a part of it could come down to what he's left willing to do, what's he got left. And obviously, moving up in weight, it could be, like we said with Devin Haney, it could be too late to move up in weight at this point. One fight at 47, and he might say, I just, for whatever reason, I don't know. I just don't think he would be the same fighter at 47 either. His career was at 140, and to be fair, I think he's slightly. I think he's done a little bit now at the elite level.
No, I don't want to move into the other fights on the card with this, so I hate touching this, Andy. But I could see if he doesn't get a trilogy fight with Catterall, could you see them maybe trying to use him as a stepping stone for Paddy Donovan? In a 147-pound fight, or do you think Josh has too much pride to take a step down to try to rebuild himself?
Yeah, I think it could be a bit of pride there involved as well. It's a hard question, actually, to be fair. I think it's a bit too soon for Paddy Donovan. And obviously, you're asking the question then: is Josh going up to welterweight? Donovan for me is.
He'd take a fight against Conor Benn at 147.
What's that?
Taylor would take a fight against Conor Benn at 147 if it was good financially.
Yeah, but it's probably got a bit of cash in at that that fight possibly. Paddy Donovan has.
On the Donovan one, I think that'd be I think Taylor would beat Donovan tomorrow. That's a massive step up for Donovan. Lewis Ritson had good success last night, and he's washed completely. I think we forget Catterall's actually very, very good as well. He's not like Taylor's one of the, he's had hard fights, Taylor, but Catterall is very, very good, and he's boxed well, and he's probably in the top 5 in the world. Catterall at 140 now. Taylor's probably just outside the top 10 realistically, but I think dropping down to ultimately British level, I can't see that happening personally for Taylor. I think he'd just rather knock it on the head unless someone was willing. The Saudis were willing to pay him like $1 million to box Donovan or something like that, which is just never going to happen.
I'm just trying to think of fights if he moved up to welterweight that might make sense for him at the end of the day. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head other than kind of testing some young domestic guys who maybe haven't quite got there yet, and we're curious if they do have it.
If he's going to 147, you would be looking at probably top 10 names to be starting off with, to be fair. So you'd be looking at Uncle Bob's stable there at 47, really, outside the champions. And who's he got?
Whatchamacallum just picked up an interim belt at 147. Good fight last week. Beat the shit out of Santion. Brian Norman.
Yeah, that was a clear best performance by him, wasn't it?
Like I said last week, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you've got Kavalauskas, Avanesyan, if you want to kind of I know he's no domestic level, but he's
looking at the way
domestically.
When I was looking at the way that Taylor was getting caught by straight punches, man, that jab Or, well, you said Kavalauskas. I'm sorry. I was thinking Stanionis. I'm like, Stanionis would fuck him up something nasty, I think.
Yeah, he just stepped into that jab too often, really. I think Joe McNally and that were that. I mean, stop holding your feet after you're throwing your punches. Move your feet. Step out the line.
Yeah, but the legs are one of the first things to go, Andy. Sometimes that's a little easier said than done.
Yeah, as I say, it's the weight making could be just be that wee bit just too much possibly. But no making excuses. Like, I mean, it was a close competitive fight. And I thought maybe Catterall just shaded it. I ain't all that. I ain't all that, mate, for a third fight. To be honest with you, it took us 2 years to get a rematch. I'm no. Oh God, no. Move on. I think both fighters should move on, actually. Unless Taylor's got a world title fight, it makes no sense for Catterall to hang about waiting for a third fight. It's no shit I got off the pot for him. He has got to now go and get a world title fight against whoever it is now. Who is it?
Yeah,
Matias Lopez. I don't know who it is going to be, but
and here's the thing is and also you have Matias that's defending his title against Liam Perro. The belt that was on the line for Haney and Garcia, who knows how that's going to work? Garcia missed weight, then he won the fight, then he tested positive. So who knows where that title is at?
B sample came back positive as well, just FYI.
It did. I'm trying to think about the other tight lists at 140 pounds.
You go Isaac Cruz, Matias, and Lopez.
Do you guys get the feeling that Isaac Cruz or Isak Cruz, excuse me, at 140 was kind of a one-off, and that title might just go up for grabs again? I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, and Teofimo Lopez, obviously. Teofimo Lopez. So I can't see. I don't know. I can't. Do you see Catterall beating any of them, Andy?
I think the Lopez fight would be. On you go.
Well, the Lopez fight, I think, is an awful fight for Lopez.
Yeah, I was going to say that's an awful fight for everybody. Actually, to be fair,
it's an awful fight for everybody. I think, and you're almost like throwing him to the wolves, like, yeah, you try. But I would be curious if he could slow down the pace against Matias. That. Because he is very good.
No, Matias. Well, you probably want to bring in Des here actually get his breakdown the fight, but Matias he goes into fights in terms of stamina. I think Catterall kind of slows down in fights down the back half.
He can't have any low activity like he did. You're right.
Exactly. You've seen it last night, and that left hand in the 11th round, as Ozzy says, just changed the course of that a little bit. When Taylor looked like he was starting to kind of come on top a little bit and starting to kind of, creep back the points, that left hand just turned the tide a wee bit when Catterall probably needed it that little bit most. So I think Matias, prime, bigger puncher than Josh Taylor as well. That's a different beast altogether for Catterall, to be fair. I think probably the Lopez fight, although it's ugly for us. It's ugly for Lopez and that as well, but probably a Lopez fight. I mean, then again, you've got Isaac Cruz or Isak Cruz, what you want to call him. You could beat him possibly. An aggressive, come forward fighter. If he could do what he did against Josh, you know what I'm saying?
That would probably be his best chance. And like I said, I expect that belt to probably become vacant, and either Haney has whatever belt that was, I can't even remember anymore. They're just all kind of run together in some massive stupidity that makes no sense at all. But I imagine that belt is Haney's or it's vacant. So I think Catterall's path, Andy, is going to be that. Is probably going to be a vacant belt. But Des, it was a fight where you saw one guy who definitely made adjustments. He had the better boxing brain. Is it as good as Alexander Usyk's? No, I wouldn't imagine. But Catterall made the right adjustments, and when it looked like he was possibly going to get taken out in that 11th round, I mean, Taylor was pouring it on at times. That left hand he unleashed was at a perfect time. It gave him that boost of adrenaline, carried him through. It's just Taylor found a moment at all the times when he really needed one. Whether he gets a shot at a championship or I think he will, but whether he wins one or not, notwithstanding, that kind of guile and that kind of understanding of the moment, that's what the best are made of, honestly.
Both kids done really well last night. It was a really good fight. Josh Taylor's had a very long career because you've got to also take into account how good he was in an amateur, and he went around the world with elite performance programs, which is an awful lot of weight making, an awful lot of competitive action. Then you come into the pros, and he's always working with the weight, going against the weight. I'm not saying he's over the hill. I'm not saying that at all. But when you've been as good as Josh has been, and when you've come off of undisputed, 10%, 15% can be a big difference, especially when you're an aggressive front-footed fighter. There ain't many tricks to your game if you're an aggressive front-footed fighter and you lose 10, 15%. In the last 3 years, we've seen Josh be inactive. And if we're honest, he probably hasn't won a fight in the last 3 years. Last night was a hard one. Tio was a hard one. Maybe we've seen a little bit of decline in Josh and we've seen his better days. And he's had a really good career.
Well, Des, isn't it? It kind of is harder, just thinking it through, to be a bigger come forward fighter. Like in the grand scheme of things, coming from that lower level so oftentimes works better as a come forward fighter because you're looking to shift your head, get out of the way of punches and stuff like that. And coming from the higher angle, it's just, I don't know, it's geometry at the end of the day.
No, I'm not saying that Shane's a better trainer than Joe McNally. I'm saying Shane had a better version than Josh Taylor than Joe McNally's got. And under Shane, Josh wouldn't have held his feet. He would have got in the pocket, he would have worked, let his hands go, and he would have come off at angles. And that would have stopped a lot of the success Jack was having last night. Because there wasn't a lot in their work, although Jack always seemed to end a lot of the exchanges, and he had the eye-catching work. And I think that went for Jack last night. There wasn't a lot in the two kids, but Jack was successful with the eye-catching work. And he always seemed to end an exchange. And he's got a really thudding jab. He knocks your head back. And that left he was throwing over the top. You couldn't miss Josh. And I just don't think Josh would have been there 5-6 years ago for that. So, look, I like the way they made the weight. I thought both kids looked good on the scales. If I'm going to be slightly forensic about it, I'm not quite sure Josh refueled as well as Jack. When I see Josh in a change room before the fight, he looked a bit puffy to me, and it didn't quite look like he'd done the last 24 hours as well as what Jack did. I'm not saying that's had an effect, but it was just my instinct. During the fight, I thought Josh was in every round, but again, he lost the eye-catching stuff. Jack seemed to finish on the exchanges. Jack's not a puncher. If Jack was a puncher, he would have put Josh over in the 11th round, or was it the 10th round, and that would have been the end of it. We talk about where does Josh go. I don't know where Jack goes. I mean, this is a really competitive division. 140 is ruthless, and 147 is just as bad. I've got a funny feeling that Eddie might bring Regis Prograis over if he can. I know there's been. Have they just changed? Have they just changed networks or promoters? Who's Regis with at the moment?
He was with.
Was he not washed out after he got beaten his last?
Yeah,
he got beat off again.
Yeah, he got beat by Devin Haney stopped him, and
no, Devin Haney, they went the distance, but he got wiped out basically.
But I've got a funny feeling Eddie might bring Regis over and try and manufacture Catterall, Dalton Smith. I think that's what might be that might be a year away. If you can pick up a title in between, I think that's where Jack goes, because I wouldn't put Jack anywhere near the titleist at the moment. Or they do a third one, which is easier to do.
As much as people seem against it, I think the third one is the direction that they're going to take it. That's my hunch.
So I think the third one, it covers a lot of remits. It keeps Jack busy. It builds on momentum. That was a brilliant fight last night. I think Josh will take it because he knows what he's dealing with. It's not unknown territory for either of the kids. I think Jack wins the third one. I think he's won the last two. And I think it gives Eddie a bit of time to see what happens at the top end of the division. The landscape might shift a little bit. He's just looking for a title to come vacant, and then he'll jump on that. And remember, he's got Dalton Smith sort of just somewhere between European level and top 10. So he probably wants to manoeuvre Dalton in a position as well. So I think a year down the line, if you can keep both kids active and build them together on the same network, I think that's a natural fight they'll try and make.
Yeah, it could make money. Hey, I got one for you, Des. I wanted to kind of nerd out on this. I actually thought one of the more clever things in the fight was how in the middle rounds Taylor was able to start finding his own left hand against Catterall, and I like kind of how he did it by opening his stance and giving himself a chance to throw it longer at Catterall. I just thought it was a slightly clever adjustment that he was able to find from completely missing that left hand to finding it with for pretty long length and getting a good twist on it.
I think Josh won. I think Josh lost the first 3 rounds, and I think Josh's corner kind of said to him, "You need to be a bit more proactive out there." And the one criticism I'd make of Jack Catterall is he does wait, and he's even when he had Josh hurt at times, he still didn't know how to put his foot down. He's not that kid. It's not in his DNA. So I think Josh saw that opportunity. Do you know what? I'm going to step in. I'm going to take control, and I'm going to be the more proactive of the two. And that's what made Josh, I think, by about round 8 or 9, there wasn't a lot in this fight. It was Josh's proactivity. But we see this a lot in boxing. Josh was working incredibly hard to stay level. And I don't think Jack had to work so hard. And it kind of, I got the impression that it's only a matter of time before Jack just pulls away. And with regards to scorecards, I'm not saying I agree, but was it 111, 117? Was that 2 of the cards, 11, 17?
Yeah. Yeah, the 2 of them, and then there was a 116, 113.
I don't agree with that score, but I can understand how you can arrive at that, because if you've got a judge that has to score a 10-9 round to a kid, he might see 6 rounds ever so close, but they all go to the same kid, and that's why it looks like a landslide. But if you spoke to that judge, you'd say, "Oh no, this fight, if we had another 20 seconds in every round, or if that kid had done something different in every round, it would have been a completely different scorecard." But I do understand how you can arrive, especially when you have a close fight and some rounds are hard to score. I do sympathise with some judges, and I can see how you can arrive at a score like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I really thought the fight was on the line in the last 2 rounds, and that left hand in the 11th really saved it for Catterall. And it kind of sucks when the judges' scorecards don't reflect that narrative, because that narrative is part of selling what a good fight it was. Unfortunately, he didn't need that left hand. He just needed to stay upright those last 2 rounds by those judges. And I don't know. I just didn't agree with that one. Someone else who didn't agree with this, I was thinking about saving this for the Belly of the Weeks, and then I was like, no, let's not. Let's play this. So Mr. Arum certainly did not think those scorecards were very good.
Important to you now.
Hey,
you want to give? Bob wants to speak.
I saw the fight like everybody else. Those scorecards were a disgrace. Were an absolute disgrace. And I really feel sorry for Josh. I thought he won the fight, but those scorecards were ridiculous. And that's the lesson. I will never, ever allow an American fighter to come here with this British board scoring the fight. Those scores were ridiculous.
Well, let's try and bring in.
I tell you what, Bob is still angry at you guys. He probably saw the original Magna Carta, and it just went downhill from there.
Fucking hell. I've never seen that.
In America, sorry, Andy. In America, they might have seen that fight a bit different, because Josh was very, very aggressive. He was proactive. He was pushing the fight. And I think sometimes if you're ringside, Josh's work might have had a lot more of an impact on, say, a ringside observer than what Jack's did. So it was a close fight.
Yeah, I don't know. There's been plenty of times when Bob could have gotten angry at fights here, and he didn't say a word.
Never said a word when Pacquiao got hosed against Tim Bradley, did he?
I think he did in the media. He didn't jump in the ring and yell anything, but I think he did in the media that he
was
just
fucking disgrace that by with that Pacquiao result.
Fuck you, it was a close fight.
118, 110 wasn't that type of close, mate. Fucking hell.
How'd you? We're not getting into that. We'll be here for hours. So at this point in time, I don't know where either of these guys is going at 140 pounds. If they're going to be able to find a title fight for Catterall, rematch probably more lucrative. But we'll see if they decide to take it on that one. Let's see here. Move on here. Oz, it took a little bit of work. He took a few shots along the way, but Paddy Donovan eventually was able to find his footing and came forward for a couple of rounds against Lewis Ritson and was able to take him out in the 9th round. What's your opinion of Donovan after that fight? Stock up or stock down, Oz?
Look, it's a solid win, but I've got to admit I expected more. I thought when we saw Lewis Ritson against O'Hara Davis, he looked well and truly washed. And I thought Donovan would go in there and would blitz him, if anything, and just really put the pressure on and get him out of there. But he didn't do that in terms of early type of thing. However, it's a good win. He's still learning. It's hard to be critical every time, and not everybody's going to put in a perfect performance. But the lad's talented. I really, really rate him. Got bags of ability. Looks really, he is improving. Still things to work on. Not sure if they might take stock a little bit and maybe not potentially rush through the opponents. Had he have gone in and blitzed Ritson out of there last night, they might take stock and say, we'll have a couple more at this level and then move on. But he's a talented guy, that's for sure. Loads to like about him. And it'd be interesting to see where they go next. I'm pretty sure that I saw talks of a potential fight with Lewis Crocker. Now that'd be a cracker. That'd be a really, really good fight and a tough fight as well. I'm surprised they're talking that up, but pretty sure Crocker is also signed with Matchroom as well. So there's no reason why that can't be made. A hell of a fight. I'd probably side with Crocker in that at the moment, but it is one of them. It's very much a pick 'em. And we'll wait and see. But no, solid win. I wouldn't say stock necessarily went down. I just expected more from him and thought he'd get him out of there much sooner than he did.
Yeah, Andy, it seemed like it was one of those things towards the end where you're almost like, could Donovan have ended this sooner if he had wanted to, if he had just chosen to be more aggressive in the fight? I don't know about that. I think maybe he might have played it right and let the old veteran get his work in before emptying the tank and giving Donovan a chance to push him back and end the fight.
Yeah, I thought Paddy gave the Geordie Golovkin a lot of respect. I remember Eddie has got called the Geordie Golovkin. My God. Yeah, to be fair, I think it was a lot to do with the fact that Donovan, probably just the way he approached it, maybe it was a wee bit kind of more methodical in the way he went about it. But I also think Ritson was a bit kind of cagey, probably kind of try to draw kind of Donovan into kind of something big and maybe try to draw him into kind of shootout. So maybe it was just a wee bit kind of wariness possibly. But I missed the first 3 rounds, to be fair, so I kind of comment on that. But I did think, gradually, I did think that Donovan was going to get the stoppage, actually. Just did not like the look of, I forget what round it was, maybe the 7th or the 8th. He was taking some shots, Ritson. I'm saying to myself, isn't he really firing back with much? I think the round before he got stopped, actually, there was a if it went on an additional maybe 20-30 seconds, I think it could have been stopped there or then. So yeah, to be fair, I think it was a lot to kind of do with as to how Ritson was kind of like approaching it. But you remember as well as it's still a development fight for me for Donovan, because you look at Ritson's record over the last 3 or so fights. I think he's only had like so many fights in about 3 years or something like that. I'm going to pull up his record here to double check what I was. Make sure I'm right on what I was saying there. When's the last fight? Aye, that's right. Aye. So he said he fought Ponce in 2021, Euskera 2021, Zlatan in 2022, and then O'Hara Davis, as Ozzy mentioned, he looked completely washed in that fight in 2023. Then he fights Paddy Donovan. So really, to me, it's a developmental fight for Donovan. I get the point that he could have looked better, but at the same time, I think it was a lot to do with Styles and how Ritson was also approaching it as well. Because if you look at the first couple of rounds, for what I've seen of it anyway, especially in the highlights, which I did, as I say, I missed the first couple of rounds, but I caught the highlights as well. It looked quite cagey. But I felt that once Donovan got himself into fighting, that it was pretty much one-way traffic. So, yeah, he is progressing in the right way. But just to rewind back briefly to your initial question in regards to Josh Taylor and Paddy Donovan, I don't think that's anywhere near a horizon. It shouldn't be any time soon, because I don't think Paddy's just possibly ready for that step up just yet. And as I say, I don't think Taylor's that far out of the hill just at this point either.
Yeah, that's the tough thing, is you're trying to weigh that out. Where is the crossroads? I don't know. Des, from what you've seen, do you feel like you have a good sense of the ceiling of Donovan, or do you still need to see some more before you really make any determination on what level you think he really sits at?
No, he's a talented kid, and I like his style. I enjoy that type of style. He's taken his amateur style into the pros, and he's got a really good trainer, because I see a lot of similarities in Andy Lee and Paddy Donovan. They sit on the back foot and they've got this imaginary circle around their feet, and when your opponent puts any part of their body into that circle, you touch them, you move off, you reset, you go again. I'm in agreement with Andy. I don't think Paddy goes anywhere near Josh Taylor. That's just, timing's all wrong. I won't put Paddy near Crocker just yet. I think Paddy needs another year or two. I think Paddy's a good fighter. I think he's got to really develop his style, where if Ritson was perfect yesterday, because Ritson goes in straight lines. He's a bit predictable. He's one-paced. And Ritson spent his whole life walking kids down. But every time he can't walk someone down, he'll lose. Ritson needed to show a few feints. Ritson needed to step off, come back with a left hook, step to your right, come back for left. He had to do something different to what he was doing. It was perfect for Paddy. I think he probably needs someone with a bit more variation over the next 12 months. And let's see what Andy Lee can do with Paddy Donovan. Let's see what they can do together. I certainly want to put him in with Josh Taylor. And as perhaps, although I think it'd be a brilliant fight and I'd enjoy watching it, I don't think he's ready for Crocker yet either. But he's got a high ceiling, because he's got a very high talent level.
Yeah, and we'll see what's next for him. If they do put him in the Crocker fight, and he passes that test this early in his career, that might be a pretty impressive start for him, and you might be really thinking of opportunities at becoming a titleist off of that one that early.
But we see these fights, like we watched Ishmael Davis and Troy Williamson a couple of months ago. And it was a chance for Ishmael to beat a good kid, get rounds under his belt, and arrive at a certain level in domestic boxing. Same for Paddy last night. But what would Paddy do with someone that had a bit more variation? Someone that showed him a lot more feints? Someone that didn't do things in straight lines? And they're the questions we need to ask of Paddy before we put him in with Crocker. And of course, I go back to what we said earlier, and I agree with Andy. I won't put him nowhere near Josh Taylor yet. That's just getting that one wrong.
Yeah, I think that's just never going to happen realistically. If I was thinking of that could maybe made, I know he's just had a fight announced on a Queensberry card, but someone like Echo Esserman, I think that would be that'd be a difficult fight, that, because he would show those. I mean, the pressure he applies for sure, but he would show those feints, the movement. It would be a difficult fight for him actually. But I think that's one from where if he could come through that looking good, I think that would say a lot of where he's at, and certainly
that's
on
where you want him. Yeah,
Esserman seems to have slowed down a bit. I don't remember his motor being as good the last time I saw him, if I recall.
He got beat by Harry Scarf, didn't he, in a close fight? But Scarf's horrible for anybody at 147 because he's absolutely massive, and he just makes it a disgusting fight. And I think that was a close fight between Harry Scarf and Esserman when it happened. But I'd keep him domestically and looking at fights like he's had maybe someone like next. I mean, it's different, but like the likes of a Kaisi Benjamin or something like that. Rattle off, these basically solid domestic wins and build a good, we always talk about. I've always said about the traditional route of going, area level, I know that this won't work for Donovan, obviously, but then English, Commonwealth, British, etc., that sort of stuff. But I think you can really build a good apprenticeship of going through those levels and ticking off different styles and different sort of fighters. And I think if they look at it that way, rather than trying to rush and, like you say, chuck him in with Lewis Crocker because it's a big fight, but actually he's not ready. What you want to do is that'll still be a big fight in 12 months, but you can ensure that Donovan is ready for that rather than just kind of jump on it now because it's a big fight. Well, actually, as long as it doesn't, it doesn't get delayed or something. If that happens in 12 months, everybody's laughing. And in that time, Donovan can potentially get another 2-3 wins under his belt, taking off the different styles and opponents from where it will build him into a more rounded fighter. But the lad's talented. There's loads to like about him, and he's got a very, very calm head in his corner in Andy Lee as well.
Yeah, Andy Lee is a good guy to learn how to be calm from, because some of the situations he was in where he landed that right hook were absolutely chaotic.
He wasn't calm on the commentary last night. I thought just to kind of wee gripe actually. I thought that commentary, especially early half of that fight, was a disgrace. Loads of those calls were shouting. You Barker going woo, the punches getting landed and shit. And then you've got Andy Lee losing his shit in that as well. I mean, dude, calm the hell down. Just let the fight play out, because you were acting like every single one of those punches were landing. Remember, Costello was losing his shit over a couple of punches that Catterall had thrown, and they were nowhere near landing. So just thought they did dial it back a wee bit actually after about 5 or 6 rounds. So I just thought they were a wee bit embarrassing last night, to be fair.
Yeah, that might be the case. Sometimes people are a little bit embarrassing. I don't know that Carl Froch was always happy to hear his wife screaming from the crowd. I think that might be still the most memorable, obnoxious thing that I've ever heard from a boxer.
That was Showtime's fault for wiring her up for sound that night, by the way. That's how she was heard the whole fight. 12 rounds, yeah.
It was ridiculous. But anyhow, let's see here. What else did we have on that card? Let's see here. Siobhan Clark with a good stoppage over Alice Zorro, taking him out in the 8th round. It was kind of a boring fight where not the biggest shots landed in there, but it came to a hell of a conclusive ending there, Oz. When the power was unleashed and finally found a home, Zorro, he was done.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit of a lackluster performance from Chev Clark, to be honest, and he just can't. It took him a little while to get going. I think largely down to probably the tactics applied by Zorro, but I think as Clark managed to go through the gears, the evident in class was there, and it was a good stoppage. And poor Ellis Zorro's been banged out brutally twice now in his last 2 fights. Obviously, Opete have nearly decapitated him in Saudi Arabia, and then he's taken another beating last night as well. But I like Clark, and that's a good win last night. It showed that when you're going into every fight and you're knocking everybody out, it just seems easy. Then when you come up against some adversity, it's like, oh, what's this? I've not had this before. And the fact that he had a bit of a messy style and Zorro made it difficult and made him work, he'll learn a hell of a lot from it rather than just going in there and wiping him out and around. But yeah, good win, loads to build off. As for Zorro, not really sure where he goes, really, because he's been, like I said, blitzed twice now. Got a good payday in Saudi. Does he start again and rebuild? Who knows? But I don't think anybody would be upset if he retired, realistically, for the 2 bad knockouts he's had.
Yeah, he's probably made a few bucks here recently, too. What the heck? Why not? Des, what were your thoughts on Clark? I found myself just kind of disinterested and not paying attention to the vast amount of details that was going on, but that ending very, very conclusive, and obviously the power is there. There's no denying that when it comes to Clark.
Yeah, he was steady, he was persistent. He was in complete control, although Zorro did a good job of frustrating Clark, and Zorro did a good job of staying in the fight. And I was watching this thinking, if you can just take Clark into sort of 5-6 round territory and not grant him a lot of success, you might see Chevron Clark turn into Mikhail Lawal he might become very predictable and very static, and then Zorro can sort of go and win the second half of this fight. But if I'm being brutally honest, you had an area level kid against a British level kid. I don't think Zorro ever thought he could win this fight. He certainly didn't box like it. He wasn't proactive enough. He was just kind of staying in the fight so he could say, I'm still in this fight. But Clark got to him, and I thought Matchroom would look after Zorro a little bit more than what they have done, because he clearly done him a favour with Opataya, and that was a showcase for Opataya. I thought Matchroom would bring Zorro back another direction.
He's with Queensbury, mate.
Ah, right.
Yeah, he's with Queensbury, so he got
Yeah,
that.
makes sense.
Yeah, they worked together on that that Saudi card to basically, like you say, doing what Frank does, getting a completely undeserved title shot for somebody who's at best British level, and then ultimately, I think Zorro might have had one fight thinking about it after the Opataya fight, and then basically utilising the new relationship that they've got. He was happy to send Zorro over there for a British title opportunity against Chev Clark.
But it's a typical. It's an example of how you kill a kid's career off. You know, you chuck him in against Opataya, you see him get topped, and you chuck him in against Chev Clark, who's going one direction, and his kid's not going the same way. So I agree with you. I'm not quite sure what we'll see of Zorro now. Maybe he'll box at on a few club shows. Maybe we'll try and pick up an area belt, but he certainly doesn't go any higher than that, I don't think.
That's a pretty reasonable assessment there. Andy, do you agree with that assessment, or God, do you even care?
Yeah, I agree with what the boys were saying there. To be fair, I don't think there's much more I can add other than the fact that I thought Clark kind of upped his pace a wee bit, probably the middle half until he got stoppage. Definitely the man knew. Well, I suppose. I think once is it Isaac Chamberlain, who is it, the Jack Massey? I think that's for the Commonwealth European titles. I think once those two face off, I think if we could try and get the winner between they two and facing off against Chev Clark, would probably be ideal. If not, then what we're looking at here really, Tommy McCarthy, he's already beat him, hasn't he? So you'll be looking at, I don't know, maybe about Callum Johnson. I know he's moved up to cruiserweight. I know he's getting old and that, but
he's talking about fighting for who knows how long, and he hasn't fought anyone. And I don't know.
Jordan Thompson, Vidal Riley.
I think that's the one. Andy. I think they're probably Chev Clark and Vidal Riley are on the same sort of pathway. I think that's the right level.
Yeah.
Because there's a big jump, isn't there, at the moment, from Riakporhe, Billum Smith. There's quite a big jump between them guys and say a Lawal, a Chev, a Riley, and I don't know where Isaac fits in. He's somewhere in the middle of them both. So I'm not quite sure you'd put Chev Clark in with an Isaac Chamberlain. I'm not quite sure. So you know what I mean? I think they're going to hang around in that little pool and wait for the top end to sort itself out.
Just looking at the top end, you got who's Riakporhe fighting again?
CBS.
He's got Billum Smith at
CBS. That's the one. Just thinking actually. So I mean, you're throwing some names out there actually. So you're kind of basically saying that I think Clark's going to be remaining at domestic level for foreseeable, really.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
But his age, it's a big ask. So really is stay there, retain the British, and then wait for opportunities to kind of come your way. So just kind of stay active and keep learning at this point. But I don't know.
And I think if with a Coley winning the WBC Bridgerweight title, that's half opened the door as well up there. So let's just say Riakporhe, whoever loses out of Riakporhe and Billum Smith, there could be an opportunity to get a win and go up to Bridgerweight and fight a Coley, or the winner could fight a Coley, or the winner of that one go up to heavyweight. Then that relinquishes some belts. But I think those at domestic level have got to somehow avoid or take the jump against Isaac Chamberlain, or going against your Billum Smiths or your Riakporhes. And I just think that's a step too far for that little lot at the moment. So I think they'll keep Chev with a Vidal Riley. They'll maybe bring is Callum Johnson too experienced and too aged for that level? I don't know. But I think they'll keep them bubbling at domestic level for now.
Callum Johnson's a good shout, actually, because he's back and he's making a return, isn't he, in boxing again?
Yeah.
So He's not of an age where he can have 4 or 5 fights of 6 rounders and 8 rounders. He's just going to jump straight back in at probably this level. So it's a good show that. And MB's right as well. The board did order Chamberlain against Clark, and then Chamberlain pulled out quite last minute, and it all kicked off online again because Clark's team were basically ready to take it and happy to do so, and it was Chamberlain who pulled out.
And Chamberlain relinquished the British title, didn't he, on that?
He did, yes. Yeah. That's why, I think that is why Zorro got this opportunity, basically, because it's 2 promoters will work together. It's an easy one to make. It keeps the belt active rather than delaying it for another month. And Clark, who was the challenger, still gets his opportunity.
And sorry, Matty, I know you got a schedule, but just there's some other names in there as well. We've seen Jordan Thompson, haven't we? And is Jack Massey still knocking about at cruiserweight? I know he flirted with heavyweight, but if you can get Jack Massey back into the mix, maybe you've got some opponents there for Chev Clark.
You know, there's always been at least a pretty consistent competitive tier in British cruiserweights, you know, for at least the last 15, 20 years, I would think. You know, they're not always world beaters. You know, sometimes you get your David Hayes, etc. But there's usually just some reasonably competitive fights to be made at the British cruiserweight scene consistently. So we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll see some fun fights out of all that. Also on the card, and this is the only one that I vaguely saw anything of because the ESPN broadcast really didn't start until the Donovan fight, I think it was. But Gary Cully getting a decision over Francesco Patera, who apparently was coming on fairly strong towards the end, but too little too late. There were 2 cards of 96-94 and one of 98-92 for the Diva. Oz, speaking of levels and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure we know what Gary Cully's is, don't we?
Yeah, I say I don't want to say he's been exposed, but he's certainly had that bad KO lost and he's rebuilding himself. I think this is a pretty solid win, to be honest, because I backed Patera in this. The bookies had him at 6-1 opening up, and I thought that was far too big. I saw this
good value. Good value. Win or lose, it was good value.
I saw this much closer, and if Patera fancied it, provided he wasn't in opponent mode, with the vulnerabilities Cully showed, Patera could have won that fight. And I think he'll probably be kicking himself that he might have left it just a little too late, because he had Cully troubled at times and he landed some shots, but he just didn't put enough together. Whereas Cully kind of kept out of arm's reach, if you were to say, and in what you should do in boxing of hit and don't get hit. But I think basically, if you'd have asked me 18 months ago about Gary Cully, he would have said that he's got quite a high ceiling, because it's a joke how he even makes 135 for a guy of his size, but then refueled quite well and was strong. But look, just the last few times it seems like, well, maybe is it taking it out of him a little bit, or he has shown vulnerabilities of going back in basically in straight lines. I remember good mate of mine, Richie Garner, he trains Craig Woodruff, and he dropped Gary Cully, and he said that Cully can be hit, and then funnily enough, the fight after he gets knocked out. So yeah, it was a good win. You know, credit to him. I think Patera is your typical European level fighter, which has got that, you know, solid enough style. Cully certainly did enough. I thought those cards were pretty fair, in all honesty. But it's one of them. Had it been a 12-rounder, we might have been talking a little bit different. And Patera is probably looking back at it and kicking himself realistically.
Yeah, one round away from a draw there. He almost had an argument, at least for a rematch on that one. I don't even know if there's anything else worth discussing as far as that fight. Des, was there anything else you caught on that card? I know there was a few more fights. If anyone took the time to watch.
No, that was me maxed out with that, mate. I just going back on the Cully thing. I agree that there is a ceiling to Cully now, and I think showing that he can beat a Patera, I think that they'll probably say, let's throw you in with a Sam Noakes, or let's throw you in with a Mark Chamberlain. Maxie Hughes will be a good fight for Gary Cully now, but I think there is a ceiling to him, and I think last night confirmed you're ready to fight anyone at domestic level.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what his level is. Maybe on a good night he might be able to win the European title. I think that's about it. Andy, was there anything else on this card you caught beyond that?
Nah, that was me, mate, as well.
All right. So we will move over to Quebec. I had a friend's kid's graduation party to go to. So I didn't catch a whole lot on this one. I caught 2 fights, total of 3 rounds. Not a whole lot of time in there. So Andy, I was I had the Christian and Billy Mark Heffron fight on. I had looked down to because I got a Facebook message, so I looked down on my laptop to type out a reply.
And the fight's off.
And my girlfriend said, "Hey, I think the fight's over." And I looked up, I'm like, "Huh?" Rewound it and watched it. And and Billy kind of went at him with some left hooks, and he's caught him clean with a few good ones, and downstairs with the hard one. And I don't know, 30, 40 seconds. And that was that, Andy. That was that.
So I mean, I'll give a brief run order the card, mate, if you want. I did catch most of it. So
I caught Makhmudov. I caught 2. That was it. Those were the only ones I caught.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's the more interesting one. You can maybe speak about Makhmudov. I mean, Billy's just he's just went in there, done the business. It's a brutal left hook to the body.
Yeah, if you literally have a minute, you can probably find it on YouTube.
40 seconds, I think it went, mate.
Yeah.
I think it was 40 seconds it lasted. So
might want to replay, maybe. I don't know.
Anybody who's ever it doesn't matter what level you've boxed. It doesn't matter what level of sparring you've done. If you've taken a well-placed body shot, it fucking lasts me for days. Miss Posh by crack ribbon that because he was down for a fair bit afterwards, and you can see his face. The instant reaction to his face contorting up once the punch landed. It was instant. Bad. I mean, can you say it was a keep busy fight after all? And I think the arena kind of how it's kind of set out in terms of capacity. And that I don't think many guys were earning much money last night. To be fair, Makhmudov, I tell you what, that what was that guy's name? Rovkanen. I think he was a Serbian or something like that. He fucking caught Makhmudov, by the way, and his legs went a wee bit again. His foot, his balance and his footwork isn't great, Makhmudov. But my God, he can punch, right? But
he's just a tank of a man. He's
it's at that level,
tank.
though, mate. It's at that level, but he doesn't belong in the top 10, in my opinion. I think anybody who's able to sustain him can take him past 2-3 rounds and even land some decent shots on him, and that you're going to have success with him. No problem at all.
I'd like to see him against someone like maybe like F.A. Ajagba, maybe someone who's looking for a chance, kind of thing like that. Loser goes home, kind of thing.
Yeah, well.
Or maybe even our man, the dude with the fantastic mustache,
Richard Torres.
Yes.
Again, those two are in different trajectories just now as well. That Kenny Larson who got stopped off Christopher Guerrero. That guy isn't a boxer, man. That guy's a straight up bum. Sorry to say it for any professional boxers out there, but he is a straight up bum. That Wilkins Mateo, I can't believe that kid's only 19. He is fucking huge for that weight. He's super middleweight. He's going to end up at cruiserweight when he finally fills out in that. And they're saying in the broadcast that he just completed a $5 million construction or dealership. I don't know what it was in that, but he's making big moves outside the ring in that as well. That Joanna Robio, I think he's also quite young as well. 4-rounder, not really much you can say really. He had it, not much you can do in 4 rounds really, unless you're going to ice a guy pretty early. But just worked on a few things. What else did I see? That Mema Uno actually again fighting a dude who really didn't belong in there with him. To be fair as well. I think that in terms of the Canadian cards of the past, I think this is one of the lesser ones. To be fair, mate, wasn't he great? Obviously, as well, it's great for us when you get up in the morning, and you see it's only like 2-round knockouts. Not fantastic. You're only going to be spending about an hour of your day watching it and that, So
yeah, if you were taking off the commentary in between the fights, like that card would have lasted about. That card would have lasted maybe like an hour and a half, 45 minutes.
What I can remember, because I got the whole card downloaded this morning, it was just over 4 and a bit hours. So you can imagine the kind of filler in between them. As I say, you had 1, 2, 3, 4 early knockouts. So yeah. So that was the Canadian card for you, mate. I say it wasn't great, but I say it was mainly kind of keep busy fights. Guys like Billy, who's obviously kind of like cresting the way for a world title fight at some point soon. Makhmudov obviously rebuilding, and Uno's another one who I think he's a based out of, I think he was in Germany for a bit, and then he's went into Canada or whatever and that. But yeah, it was, as I say, it wasn't great to watch, to be fair.
Yeah, for me, I just happened to catch the last two fights. I guess it was mildly entertaining. Oz, do you have any thoughts on Billy?
No, mate, no. I was shocked, mainly because I know Heffron's not anywhere near that level, but to get ironed out in 40 seconds is somewhat more of an achievement than anything else, really. But look, he caught him with a body shot, and as Andy said, if you get hit by one of them, no matter if it lands sweet, you goosed. That is what Heffron was. And as for the big heavyweight as well, look, he's got big power, but I don't think he's that great, to be honest. I think, we've seen him get ironed out now, and he was caught last night, and his legs certainly stiffened, like Andy said. He's not in the top 10. He doesn't really hold anything desirable in terms of why you're going to bring him over as an opponent. I think realistically, the only reason he's going to get away is by working his way into some sort of opportunity. But I think he'll become unstuck again because he's vulnerable. He's not the best when he takes a shot, and whilst he's got big power, we've seen people like that. Do you remember the Russian hammer, Kudryashov? His power is elite, but when he gets it back, he ends up flat on his backside. So, not saying they're exactly the same, but in terms of like similarities for loads of power, but can't really do much else. I would say it's not far off on that one.
Yeah, it's the problem with these kind of fights, Des, is that you just didn't learn anything about anybody in that fight. It was kind of like some of the old Tyson fights where it's like, oh, okay, well, that was an interesting minute of my life. I guess I'll go have a sandwich. There's just not much to take away.
No, and it was I think Andy called it right. It's just keeping the kids busy. And there's some good kids on there. I liked Wilkins Pateo. They were trying to bring Matt Mudov back. And of course, you've got Billy, who's the cherry on the cake. I don't know if yourself, Ozzy, Andy, or anyone in the chat knows, is Mark Heffron still with Joe Gallagher?
Lee Beard, right? Lee Beard.
Joe Gallagher was in Poland on Friday night.
He was, but is Lee Beard handing up?
Full time with Beard now. Full time.
Right. Yeah, and that could be a real hard one to overcome because you got Danny Dignam last night, and I understand the principle. You're going out to was it Quebec or Montreal? You're going out to Canada, and you're fighting a world-class kid. You can be forgiven for losing, but sometimes how you lose can really cast a shadow over you mentally and physically. And I'll be interested to see if Mark Heffron comes back from that. That's a hard one to come back from. And when I looked at the size of the ring and I see Billy prowling around in the corner, I thought this doesn't look good. I didn't expect Mark to win, but I'd like Mark to have got a bit more out of the fight because I still think Mark's got something to offer at domestic level. But that's how that one goes. Mudov is always going to be a fun watch, but I think anyone that can take him past 3 or 4 rounds, can show him angles and keep tapping him, I think will always break him down. I think his body works against him, Mudov. And I'm with Andy. I like Mateo. I like the look of him. I'm going to be interested to see how he gets on.
All right. Well, that was the Canadian card. It's we've kind of moving through this pretty darn fast here this week. There was also a Pro Box card. Unfortunately, I was the only one that caught it, and I say that because there was a darn good fight on it. Get to that one in a second. But the main event was a 140-pound fight between Batir Jukumbayev and Ivan Redkach. It's just kind of a one-sided beatdown that ended in the 5th round. Jukumbayev still definitely has a lot to offer. Redkach, not so much. He failed to really get off any decent shots. Jukumbayev just far too much. But the really good fight on there this week, and there always seems to be one, was a fight that was fought at 132 pounds, so just a bit over junior lightweight between Jonathan Cardoso and Adam Lopez. I just think this is a bit too high of a weight for Lopez because it was a great fight back and forth through 6, 7, 8 rounds. But I just think Cardoso down the stretch was able to start imposing his size on him as the punches of the bigger man started to tell more on the smaller man. It did go to a decision with Cardoso taking a split with a scorecard of 96-94 and an absolutely indefensible 99-91. Or 99-91 card, and then Lopez got a 97-93 card himself, which I can see that maybe you could inch towards a draw, but I didn't think Lopez really had an argument. But it was all out absolutely a fantastic fight at times with both guys winging punches, changes of momentum, some good inside exchanges with great body work. I would definitely go back and watch that on their YouTube channel, or if you have their channel on your streaming device, definitely watch the fight between Jonathan Cardoso and Adam Lopez from Wednesday's Pro Box. Totally worth your time. Fantastic fight. Let's see here. Looks like we have lost Oz, which is a shame because we're going to be going into previews here real quick. I'm trying to think of a couple of things that might be going on here that are worth discussing. And I kind of think to spend a little bit of time here, guys, I do think it is worth discussing, as we mentioned earlier in the fight, as we're discussing 140 pounds, and maybe we can just have a broader discussion about that division on the whole stemming from this. But Ryan Garcia's B sample came back the same. His people say they're going to submit toe nail samples or hair samples and all the samples, and they're going to prove he's innocent and blah, blah, blah. But Andy, I was listening. They're talking about on Pro Box, interestingly, Chris Algieri is pretty sharp with this stuff because he's got that nutritionist degree. He kind of knows his way around it. But what these guys apparently are doing with a lot of these substances is they're kind of micro dosing it through camp, and it kind of just holds away enough in the fat cells that it doesn't pass through more often than not. And then when they're between fights, they're taking heavier doses oftentimes. So Ryan Garcia just got caught. Maybe because trying to cut weight specifically too quick or whatever, or maybe just bad fortune, or maybe he took a little bit too much. But regardless of that, the sample is positive, and I can kind of see where they were going at Pro Box discussing this. It's pretty interesting.
I'm wondering if I maybe try and use the old John Jones excuse, actually. Remember the old Paulson excuse? So basically what it is previous drug use gets stored in your fat cells. So say you try to make weight and then something triggers your system, and then it triggers that same drug that's been stored in your system, and maybe in a fat cell, it gets released into your bloodstream, and boom, you fail a drugs test. So I'm interested to see if they can do that. But to be fair, I think I didn't know how it works in America, to be fair. And that, I mean, I was seeing in boxing scene that they're talking about Ryan Garcia's next possible fight. I mean, to be fair, if this is happening like maybe the UK or maybe Germany or some other European country, for example, and he's facing a 4-year ban. He's not getting to fight until he's cleared himself. Obviously, the states in America, they allowed Conor Benn in the country, allowed him to fight while he's still under investigation. So it's just a fucking mess there and how they kind of handle it. Either way, look, the situation is he's failed it. Obviously, he's failed the drugs test. The B samples come back, so there's no dispute. He needs to answer the case. Now, if he's going to do all the hair samples, that best of luck to him. I think, as I understand the Canelo case, he was able to provide receipts for, I think it was a couple of restaurants he'd been to, who were then, the drug testers were then able to back check it, and then they found the meat was contaminated that way. He did the hair sampling test, all that type of stuff, and it proved, or apparently proved, that he did not deliberately intend to cheat at that time, right? Garcia's case is completely different, to be honest with you, in that as well. So, I was listening to Victor Conte's comments on it, that as well. He doesn't believe, obviously, again, he's obviously got his own opinion, because obviously Devin Haney's his fighter at the end of the day, but he gave a kind of rational kind of breakdown as well. Some people don't believe him or trust his opinion in that, but at the end of the day, if you're going to try and catch cheats, then how best to catch them than bring in the people who actually taught people on how to cheat? They've done it with the FBI, done it, drugs people have done it. governments have done out of the world to bring in, people who cheat and steal and all that type of stuff to show them how it's done. Help us explain to us how it's done. But in terms of Garcia, I don't know if he'll get banned, mate. I see Logan Paul's coming out now saying there's a lawsuit against Ryan Garcia now in regards to comments that he's made. The dude's fighting on all fronts just now, mate. Drugs tests and lawsuits. There's new allegations of fight. His dad Haney's trying to get the fight turned to a no contest and get Garcia banned for life. Fucking messy, man. So obviously he's got his situation outside the ring and that as well in terms of like his baby mama's not too much. It's just the life seems a complete mess. So somebody needs to sit the kid down and just kind of say, well, listen, he needs to get a grip of it. He needs to get a grip of it soon, or we're just going to unravel pretty quickly because that's the way it's going. It's an absolute mess where this is heading up.
Yeah, and I mean, Des, and the fact that they just go into 6-month ban and people start planning their next fight, or they're fighting once a year because they're people like Ryan Garcia and they make 7 figures, 8 figures sometimes in one fight. It all doesn't matter. I mean, they make if they're not taking a truly substantial amount of the purse, better than 50% or something ridiculous like that, or the ban isn't, over at least 18 months, you're thinking, who cares? What's stopping them? It just gives them an edge. And on top of that, the sanctioning bodies have made these titles so freaking worthless at the end of the day. The fighters couldn't give a shit about them. They don't care if they're a titleist or not. Well, what would you rather do? Get $1 million person, get a title, or would you rather get $10 million and there's no title? Who cares?
I think it's safe to say that boxing, of all the sports, of all the pro sports, particularly high-end pro sports that have positions on networks and have huge amounts of money coming in and have attract a worldwide audience. So if you're talking of tennis, football, boxing, track and field, if you think about all the physical sports out there, I think boxing is the circus tent of those sports. And we can't even organise 3 judges to sit around a ring and score a fight properly. I don't think we're going to get a handle on this. I think drugs have probably hit boxing when boxing was half asleep and wasn't prepared for this. I can take myself back to, let me get my numbers right, 1980, I think, it was 1988 in Seoul, when the biggest name in sport, arguably, was Ben Johnson, and he popped. And it was, there's been loads of documentaries and books written about it. And I'm going to get this wrong, but it was along the lines of the fight was pushed back. And had it not been pushed back, Ben Johnson wouldn't have popped, right? He got his timing right, but they moved the race back. Athletics, the sport of athletics said, you're gone, you're done. Medal taken off you, sponsorship's gone, prize money taken back, and you're never allowed to go near an athletics track again, or 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it was. And he was smeared, besmirched, done. I remember Darren Campbell, who was the 200 and 400 meter runner for Great Britain, said they came round to my mum's house to take my gold medal back off me, and I didn't even cheat. Someone in my 4x4 team cheated. I think track and field have shown boxing perhaps how we can do this. And
they're doing there, Des, I mean, the fact that, they give them like a 5-year ban in track and field, you're talking a complete speed sport. Like, there's very few people whose primes are extend much past, 25 in that sport, honestly. So they're taking their prime away from them with that ban and going a 5-year period. They're making sure there's not an Olympics involved in there. They're saying, yep, and you're 2 Olympics out. So they're really taking 8 years away from them in some cases.
And not for the actual drug taking, but for lying. I think it was lying on the stand. Didn't Marion Jones do jail?
She did. I believe you're 100% correct.
They're balls deep with the sanction on this. They don't play with it, and they take money out your bank account. They take medals off you. They expunge you from the record books. I mean, this is how to act. And if boxing was to sort of follow a similar sort of line, if they said to, let's just say, a fighter registers his trainer, his cut man, his strength and conditioner, the trainer's second. If he registered them with the board every time he had a fight, he said, right, my next fight, I've got an 8-week camp, and they're the registered people, part of my team. If he popped and he got a 5-year ban, and all his team got a 5-year ban, and the purse that he received for that fight got taken out of his bank account, and his record got expunged from the books, then maybe we might see something here. I'm not quite sure if that would stop people taking a risk at the very high end, because there's so much money involved. But certainly, I think if you're going to do this, we need to build the foundation solidly. And to repeat what you said at the start of this point, Matty, the consequences are just not strong enough. You know, if you get a 6-month ban, or you can shout and scream that you're innocent, but take a slap on the wrist, it's just not enough. So boxing needs to be harder. Boxing needs to be up to speed with this, and fighters should also take responsibility. I've often thought, if I was a boxer in today's market, I would put everything I eat into a little cellophane bag, sign it, date it, put it in the freezer, and I'd send all that over to the lab. I'd be signed up to every program, because I'd say, there's no way I'm going to get caught out. But there's got to be a middle ground. There's got to be a sort of way where boxing can say, we're going to be hard on this. So more for you if you want to cheat. At the moment, it's not that. It's the opposite.
Well, and I think also the problem with it is that I'm trying to go back in my mind here, but I'm thinking that these sentences for people have gotten generally lighter. Like, am I wrong in remembering that Larry Olumbawimbo got like 3 years?
No, he got the maximum, mate. I think he got the maximum, but I also believe Des might be able to correct me here, but I think he probably cooperated with the drug testers and that, in terms of where he got his drugs from, because he wasn't. I'm sure Larry O wasn't caught by a failed drugs test. He got caught because he was buying his stuff online from China, and I believe the American DEA actually tracked the payment, or tracked the order, and then they notified the British Board of Control, and that's how he got caught. Because
I don't know.
And this is the other thing as well, is this is how the Russians, how the Russian episode all appeared about. Remember that Icarus thing about 4 or 5 years ago? The Russians were getting the drugs for the Chinese, but they were noticing the Russians were actually winning everything. So the Chinese actually then started fucking tampering with the drugs. So it was actually going to like make sure that they actually failed drugs test. So it's just snidey, sneaky bastards, by the way. But it's where there's money to be made, that the elite and guys are going to take that risk. And you know, you've seen Lance Armstrong, you know, back in the day when he was EPO and all that type of stuff, and the cyclists were dying in their sleep because they had hematocrit levels up to 50%, basically blood like fucking syrup, basically. And you got Lance Armstrong fighting cancer, and all these young cyclists dying young and that. You know, there's definitely, without doubt, these guys have, you know, probably been, you know, the illness he's been brought on by taking these fucking underground lab drugs. And that, I mean, drugs are made underground and that, for fuck's sake, man. But, you know, blood bags, and this is the thing, you know, they're taking blood out themselves and then they're freezing it in their own fridges so they can go back and use it 6 months later in the year when they badly need it for like blood boosts and stuff. That's just fucking outrageous.
Huh. I didn't know that.
And what's his new trip? What's his new trend where fighters after a while they go back to a hotel room and putting themselves on an intravenous drip? What's his new trend I'm hearing about? You know, like how if boxing's like a drip of water, it will find a gap.
But Matty, see back in the day, right? I'll tell you, I know this isn't boxing related, but see back in the day, like the cyclists and that, Tyler Hamilton and like, who's in Lance Armstrong's team, when they went back to the hotel rooms, they were told to get into bed and put their covers on them because they were due to get fed now, right? And that meant the bags were coming in, because the bags were stored in chilled fridges. The blood had to be chilled at a certain temperature. If it dropped below that, the blood went bad. And if you injected the blood back in you when it was bad, you were fucking you needed a hospital, basically. Anyway, these guys were lying in the bed. They would take all the pictures off the walls. They would hang the blood bags on the hangers of those said hooks for the pictures, and the guys would fucking basically be injected, and this blood would run down ice cold, and they'd be sitting there chittering. Well, this cold blood goes back into their system. The basic blood give them blood boost or give them extra oxygen, red blood cells, basically to kind of give them endurance before the big mountain stages, that type of stuff. And that. So it wouldn't be against the realms of possibility these guys are doing the same thing, and I believe some of the top end guys, that's what they've been doing.
See, well, when it comes to the IVs, like that's because if someone's getting like a B vitamin drip, you can't really like rip on them for that. That's a little bit tougher to tell because there are things that are completely legitimate vitamin drips and stuff for replenishing yourself after incredible physical exertion. That there's nothing wrong with it. But I'm pretty sure that's probably, I don't know, that's probably not the drips most people are doing, but.
Well, I tell you what, I'll go back to my own cousin, actually. I mean, obviously, he blew up with steroids and that, but this was back in the day before there was any, like, Google, where you could actually go and do a bit of research, or you go and speak to, like, say, Victor Conte, for example, and that. It was trial by error. And, of course, he's taking this shit, and he's putting on the muscle and that type of thing, but the problem is, what happens when you stop taking it? Your system needs to be re-kicked, restarted, and you got to start cycling off that stuff. And he wasn't doing it properly, so he starts retaining water, he starts getting rages and that type of stuff. And what happens? He dies of a heart attack because he starts fucking pumping shit into his system. He doesn't know how to deal with it or get in direction.
Play with me on this one, Des. So you got this because these guys have to properly cycle this, and I don't know how many weeks, how many months. I'd be lying if I said I understand it, but is this just one other thing on why fights can't get made because different fighters are at different points in their drug cycling regimens, so they just can't seem to get the dates to line up?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I remember. Why wouldn't that be the case? I remember spending a lot of time on athletic tracks, doing certain training, and you get to know sprinters and middle distance runners, and you get to know heptathletes and so on. And once you get into someone's confidence, you know yourself, when you're in a changing room, people talk loosely. And if you're part of a circle, you're part of a circle. And the feeling then was, it's not about who's taking it, it's who's not taking it. And if you want to get anywhere from, say, fourth to first, you have to be taking it. Because the top end of this sport, it's impossible to compete if you're not on it. And I would speak innocently, naively, because I'd be there in a sweatsuit and a woolly hat and with running trainers. And these guys, they were so up to speed with science, and they had their own pharmaceuticalists. And they would say, oh, but every now and then a top star will get it wrong. And I said, what would they do then? Well, they'd just pack their bags and leave. They'd say they had a breakdown. They'd say they had a family emergency, and they'd walk out in a major championship or a major event. Well, in a funny way, we're seeing that with boxing now. We're seeing we're noticing guys. Some guys haven't boxed for 18 months. So you're fighting for British titles, and you're talking about European titles, and you're being put in the frame at world level. And now you've gone on the missing list for 18 months. And we talk about it a lot, don't we? We say it's silent bans. But what is happening to a lot of these guys? And are we being informed? Do we know what's happening? I think there's an awful lot of people that have decided that, well, no, I can't have that fight because I'm not on the right cycle. I've got to take a ban, and I'm not going to declare it. I think there's a lot of that goes on, Matty. And what we know is probably half of it.
And the other thing as well, Des, if you've been running about all these athletic guys, now how many of these fighters that we're not being told about are getting TUIs, therapeutic use exemptions, to actually use certain drugs because they need it, because whatever, the testosterone levels are low, or things like that.
They might have some sort of exemption.
Legitimate, so they've got an exemption to use a certain steroid, for example, because I've got hemorrhoids or I've got saddle sores or something like that,
Yeah, exactly that. So, but I go back to the point I made earlier. Like, we don't know enough about all this, and I don't think the sport of boxing knows much about it. We're not wide into this. But it's been said a few times. Whenever we find someone like a Larry O, who's really up to speed with this sort of subject and has been caught, I'm not. It's a bit like the FBI. Why don't the board bring him in and sit him down and say, clue us up on this subject matter. In fact, why don't you be our consultant on this and work just within the remit of the British Boxing Board of Control? Because I don't think the board know enough about this, because this is something that's hit boxing. And it's not just boxing, because I remember back in the 80s, you had to be sort of from, a certain part of Europe, or you had to be at a certain level of sport to even get anywhere near a PED. Now, if you go down your local gymnasium on the high street, if you hang around a weights gym for a couple of weeks, you'll see someone that's doing it, you'll make friends with them, they'll offer it to you. This is out there. It's not a taboo subject, and it's not a society of secrets no more. This is out there, and it's in boxing. So I think to get a handle on it, I think the sport should start sanctioning fighters that are found guilty. I think it should be hard on fighters and fighters' trainers and the team around that fighter. But also, I think the board should work with people that have been in boxing and are familiar with the subject, bring them in and say, how do we find fighters that are doing this type of stuff? That might be a way.
To be honest, I agree with everything you said there, but to be honest, would Larry O want to be bothered with that hassle? Because you see the type of abuse Victor Conte gets for the comments he comes out and says that for a guy who was on one side of the fence to then jump over and be this anti-drugs advocate, he still gets abuse and he still gets you don't be trusted and didn't listen to this guy for whatever reason. But you're right. It's the guys who know to cheat the system. That's the guys you need to educate. Because once they find one gate shuts, the other one opens, because they'll find another loop. They'll find another chemist to make these drugs underground, that type of thing. They'll find another way to beat the tests. And you're right, Mike. Everything goes down to microdosing.
Andy, if you had a sweet shop and you had a problem with shoplifters, would you employ someone to guide you that's never stole a thing in his life, or would you employ an ex-shoplifter to show you how it works? You'd probably get the ex-shoplifter in and say, show us what to look for. Show us what I'm doing wrong. Show us the loopholes. And I think if the board was to work with, and listen, you're right, whether it's Larry O, and I've just pulled him out the end, I don't want to use him I don't want to disrespect him, but anyone who's been found guilty of something like this, maybe the board should reach out to them and say, would you consider coming on board with us? Would you be our consultant? Would you work with us to show us what we're not seeing and how we can maybe make this harder for people that are cheating? But I think the board needs to do something, as does the whole sport, obviously.
I think Robert Smith's, he's probably scunning up with all this stuff and that in terms of drugs and that, but I think they've got quite a few good lawyers on board now and that who have been kind of specialised in the subject. So, and they won their appeal against that was it the independent ruling that Conor Benn got. So provisionally suspends Benn again, doesn't it? So I would just like to see. Obviously, I don't know if Ben's been fully sanctioned yet, but he has got to be looking at a 4-year ban now. The whole charade of that's just been an absolute, as Ozzy would say, a disgrace. It really has been.
How long has it been now, Andy?
It's been almost 2 years now, isn't it, Mai?
Yeah, there you go, 2 years.
When I was a young man,
I
hear it. So he's been out for 2 years, and I'll be honest with you, Andy. I still don't know whether we're coming or going with that one.
Yeah, I know, mate. I'm just checking. I think it's been just over a year now. I think I'm right in saying I was over a year. Yeah, you're right, mate. I'm just trying to kind of re-rack my brain as to how everything went down again and that, but just too much to kind of discuss in that again. We've been over it before, but as I say, just the reasoning that they come out with, some of the excuses that they used, none of it made sense. None of it tied together, and just considering that the board managed to get their appeal successfully, upheld, then he's got to be looking at a 4-year ban. It has to be.
Well, let me
probably
ask
even
you
time
guys,
served.
Let me ask you guys this: is it possible that the problem why this keeps persisting is that they keep just targeting the fighters to set the example of, to punish of, and that's the only thing we hear about? Maybe to nip this thing in the bud, you kind of have to make it cost more people more money. Do you think maybe the right way to go on this is to be directly fining promoters and X number of offenses, and you can't hold events?
That would help.
Well, Eddie would argue with you right now, say, well, I've already lost it because he lost the whole card. With Conor Benn losing, failed that drugs test, right? So he's already beat. So that would be his argument. I've lost. Oscar lost out in the what was it? Lamont Peterson Amir Khan fight, I think it was the rematch. Similar situation there, drugs test. I want to say what happened. Was it Canelo Golovkin fight? Try to remember. Was that the one talks and then there was a failed drugs test there again? Remind me. Or was it after the first fight?
Popped after first fight.
Right. So
imagine if a network and the board made it, this is a verboten. This is you weigh in on the Friday, and we do all your samples and tests Friday morning. And when you get the green light, you weigh in. And if you don't get the green light, the fight and the whole card is off, unless we can find a replacement. But can you imagine where that would leave a particular fighter with his promoter and the network? It'd probably never work again. So I think we've got to start putting fighters in corners and saying, this is all on you now. You, your team, you've got to turn up clean. Otherwise, you're going to be sanctioned.
See if you want the worst the worst possible sanction, actually, in my opinion. If you want to fuck them up financially and all that type of stuff and professionally, that type of thing, you do what you did to Felix Sturm. You put them in jail. Because you have put something in your system to enhance your performance in a combat sport that can, and basically, again, remember, these are legally trained fighters. They are trained to throw punches to hurt you, to knock you out. And if you damage someone, it has a knock-on effect. You have you've had deaths in the last number of years.
I agree, Andy.
Seen it all. Jail sentences, 18 months, and you've got to do the full bird as well.
Well, yeah, it's interesting you say it. So and welcome to the show, Rob Kelly. You start talking about drugs, and here comes Rob. But I mean, when you look back at Panama Lewis and Louis Resto and what they did to Billy Collins, is somebody being fucking jacked on drugs and pummeling their opponent? Is that entirely different than pulling padding from gloves? I mean,
look at Aaron Pryor against Alexis Arguello.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right. Yeah.
The mystery liquid,
mystery bottle. Yeah. The one I mixed, boy. The one I mixed.
Look at Margarito and Cotto. It's all cheating, isn't it?
And there's so many. Here's the argument that I was just about to make. Right, regardless of whether they killed somebody in the ring or whatever, if they pop. But those fights where the fighter's never the same again after the fight. Like if a fighter could legitimately make a claim against somebody that was pop for dope and say, "Hold on for a second, this guy was putting on performance enhancing and he's ruined my career. I was estimated to make 50 million on the trajectory I was on," and then they start suing each other. I don't know. Like I think that's why it's not as police, because I feel like they know that everybody's on it, and if they were to open it up to more strict punishment, that you wouldn't get fights made. Number one, there'd be so many fights in jeopardy. Like they're saying, if they pop in the week of the fight, then the fight's off. Where does that leave the guy? Do you know what I mean? The network loses, the manager loses, the court.
No one would talk to him again, would they?
Yeah,
undercard loses out.
Everybody loses out. So I just think that's why
and that's the sort of pressure
so much.
Well, it's the Wild West, guys.
You put on someone.
It's like the Wild West, guys, and nobody really rejected the Outlaws at the end of the day. They were
pretty bunch of lads.
I don't know. And the problem is, there has to be some penalty that goes beyond the fighters that makes it so there is more. There's more reasons for the promoters and everyone involved in the event to stay on top of this in their own way, to work it out in their contracts and things like that. And I think at that point in time, and maybe we just kind of cued into it. If you put that pressure on the promoters and say, look, you're going to have some liability for this whole thing, and you could end up losing the whole events, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that would make it so that the promoters would have, they'll have, definitely reason to get in writing with the fighters, and if you pop for drugs, you in this clause, you're going to be responsible for these losses to the company and things like that. So at this point in time, you're setting all of this framework that says you can fight clean and let the best man win, or you're opening up the door to losing more than you have. Basically, it's there has to be something in writing that makes it so people are losing more than 6 months of their career, and they can just go be a jerk off on Twitter and claim innocence, right?
I mean, if you see if you look at I'm not saying like even back in the 70s and stuff like that, that some of the fighters weren't using performance enhancing drugs and that, but just look at the difference in their body shapes. You know, fighters. You look at Duran, even at his prime, he wasn't like ripped.
He wasn't chiseled going up the scales. He's just like,
you know what I'm saying?
I don't want to train this hard. I'm going to middleweight.
He didn't look completely muscle. You know, you had Ray Leonard, who was he was lean. Hearns was the same. Hagler to an extent. He would, these days now the guys are like.
Well, yeah, they weren't ripped. They weren't ripped to fucking bits. Like I always made that argument.
They're not stacked. Sorry, that's the thing I'm saying. They're not stacked with muscle. With some of these fighters, like some of the guys we've seen.
If you look at the weigh-in, and I'm not casting aspersions on either of these two fighters, but does anyone remember the weigh-in between Mayweather and Pacquiao? There was 12 packs upon 12 packs of the two of them. Like they were absolutely fucking ripped to shreds.
And like late 30s or early 40s.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Mr. Universe for people under 5'9".
Yeah. Mr. Tinyverse.
Scan 5 legs. Yeah, absolutely.
Remember that story as well with Mayweather? You know, I forget what fight it was, but remember, was it you, Sada, turned up to do a drugs test and he's lying in his room getting an IV?
Getting an IV. That was a Pacquiao fight. It was a fucking Pacquiao fight. Yeah, he got a TUE, a therapeutic use exemption for a home administered rehydration via IV after the fucking Pacquiao fight. Like a guy who is already fucking 2 weight classes bigger than he needed an IV
after the weigh-in. That's what it was. After the weigh-in. That's what I'm saying. That's what I says at the time. That if you're that bad, you need an IV. You should be in the hospital.
Well, you guys were talking about people's their general physiques and the boxers of years gone by. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but number one, if you're bulkier in the muscle category, you're going to have the problem of loss of speed, and on top of that, also gas tank because of the way your blood has to flow in the muscles or something like that. I don't know the exact science, so when you get into that idea and you look at these ripped physiques and things like that, if that is true, then something is amiss. Am I wrong? Eubank was ripped,
I mean, you always get the genetics. You always get the genetics, but you're seeing some of these fighters fighting longer, going up weights. I mean, here's the thing: Eubank wasn't a weight hopper. Nigel Benn wasn't a weight hopper.
And Eubank always declared, he said, look at me and how strong. He's one of the toughest men in history of British boxing. He's amazing. He's chiseled amazingly. He said, I was the poster boy for drug testing. I was always tested because of the way I looked and the way I fought. So he's always come at me very open about that, Chris.
Well, hold on though, Andy. Did you say that somebody who won the middleweight title and later fought Carl Thompson at cruiserweight wasn't a weight hopper?
Well, he spent most of his career in middleweight, super middleweight.
Yeah, when he was when he was on the retirement tour, he went up to cruiserweight.
Because he couldn't do the weight.
He weren't putting a dent in Cole Thompson. He weren't putting people to kick pussy up at cruiserweight. He wasn't putting a dent in Cole Thompson. It was a hard fight, but he didn't fight like a drug cheat, did he?
What we're seeing is
great fight though. That first one was.
What we are seeing is like guys coming up 3-4 weight divisions and sometimes holding, the stamina, the output, the punching power. Sometimes, So I think guys like, it's hard to say completely who is clean, but in my opinion, I think Donaire was possibly clean, and I think Andre Ward was clean.
Donaire caught up with Victor Conte, I think, in 2012, and was one of Conte's first clients when he got back out of jail. Well, and the reason I agree with you, and I'll just point this out to people who think, oh, well, that says everything. Who do you think had the most scrutiny on them at the time when it came to performance-enhancing drugs? Probably Victor Conte. He just got out of jail. Were there not eyes looking on him everywhere? I don't think I don't think that dog will hunt. I think that more so proves Donaire was clean because they were going to be being watched like a hawk.
And Donaire was one of the first fighters to enroll in Nevada as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and he ended up finding a ceiling, and God love him. He was an athletic freak in his
But
younger ages.
Donaire then come down in weight. What age is he now? 40? He come back down to 118, hasn't he?
Yeah, but if
So
you remember when he got up to 126 and fought Walters, he was pudgy. Like I don't think he ever had to leave the bantamweight division. I think he quit training hard.
just trying to look at some comments here. It's a racing. Any fighters clean nowadays? Andy is right. The fighters today are different build from the juice. Yeah, I mean, cast your mind back then. Look at the 70s heavyweights. Let's see, Ali, Frazier, Bonavina. Cast your mind back to these type of fighters, Foreman even. You think about these fighters' physiques. They were solidly built, but they aren't stacked with muscle. Joe Frazier is solid, stocky, solid, but he's no, overly ripped by muscle. If you know what I'm saying. Look at, like, say, I'm not going to
Let me ask
throw
you
out
guys a
names,
question.
but
Let me ask you guys a question on this because I think this is very germane to what we're talking about. In your mind, who is the first fighter in boxing, as far as chronologically, who you think was on performance-enhancing drugs? I have one name in mind.
Mate, I can tell you right now, you can go back to the Roman times.
Don't fuck with me on that one. I'm thinking of Vander Holyfield. Des is giggling. I think you were thinking the same name as me. I'm thinking Holyfield.
No, I think there's fighters that predated Holyfield surely.
Yeah.
But the first one that you really thought, you're not going back and you're thinking,
I mean,
Larry Holmes was juicing.
Yeah.
Okay, I suppose it's a drug in that, but then look at what happened with Jake LaMotta against Sugar Ray Robinson in the sixth fight. They're feeding LaMotta fucking brandy in between rounds to kind of douse the pain. That's
just the era.
urban
That's
legend,
just
apparently.
the era.
But yes, I'm saying the shit like
And
that.
why
I mean,
do Scotsmen consistently think liquor is performance enhancing? I can assure you it's not, Andy.
No,
wouldn't mind something to dumb the pain fucking on here some nights.
I'll leave that to you, Matty, but I can tell you I can perform on the old whiskey boy. Don't you worry about that. Remember, today's rain is tomorrow's whiskey.
Old Scottish proverb.
Yep.
Speaking of Scotsman, I might as well chime in on the fucking Taylor Catterall fight. I'm sure you've covered it to date by the time I got on here at 9:30 at night. But I did actually watch
the previews.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, dude. Fucking yeah. So I watched the undercard. I watched the main event. I had it a lot closer than a lot of people saw it. Definitely had a lot closer. I thought those two, the 117, 111, was a bit of a joke. I actually had it here, controversial score. I had it 114. No, hold on now. I'm going to pull up my scorecard. I had it 115, 114, I think, to Catterall because I gave a draw round in round 9, which I never do, but I gave a 10-10 round in round 9 because I couldn't split them. But I thought the right guy won, but it was a lot tighter than a lot of people thought. I thought I had him 2-2 after 4 rounds, and then Catterall taking over, pot shotting him with the kind of the jab over and over, starting to get into a rhythm, started to nail Taylor a little bit. And then Taylor looked old in round 6. It looked like, I was saying to the boys, like, sensationalist, like obviously fucking following the fight in the moment. But I was thinking, like, it looks like Taylor can get pulled out of here. Like he looks like he has nothing. And then round 7 came back like a fucking athlete, rallied, started going to the body, started to push Catterall back. I thought he was making Catterall look really uncomfortable. He just couldn't get off clean enough, I don't think, Josh Taylor, with some of the body shots. It was like he was working the way you're supposed to. He was changing the angles coming in. He was stopping Catterall, kind of pinging the head off him with the jab by changing the distance up and down. He was getting close, but when he got in close, I don't think he worked. I don't know, maybe he's just not able to work the way he used to, but it didn't look like he was working like the Josh Taylor of old. But the fight was very close, nip and tuck. Like, I think it was a big round 11 for Catterall, wasn't it? Round 10 or round 11 was a big round one for him where he nailed him.
But 11th eye with the left hand.
With the left hand, yeah. And it looked like he could have took him out, maybe.
It just kind of halted Taylor's momentum, and that just kind of like changed it. Just kind of like,
So yeah, basically, I just had one round, and I think that's the round that Catterall kind of made sure that he won the fight, like with the big 11th round, and then whatever. But it was a close fight, and it was a cracking fight all the way through. Electric atmosphere. We didn't know which way it was going. It was swinging to and fro, but I think that kind of scorecards, is there even any point complaining about them? Because we had them the week before as well with Usyk and Fury, dodgy scorecards. Like the right guy won, but the scorecards are dodgy as fuck. Last night, the right guy won.
I think it was kind of reverse where
I think there's unconscious bias for the judges in the close round. They're giving it all to Catterall rather than fucking. Do you think it's one of them? Like,
no, more so. I thought that Usyk Fury was arguably wider than Catterall against Taylor.
The commentary team certainly ken who they wanted to win anyway. Put it that way.
It was like all Catterall.
They wanted Catterall to win big time. They were calling it.
I think there was a big cloud over the whole event, and it all stemmed from the controversy of the first fight. And I think you'd be naive to think that judges and commentary and the whole promotion wasn't a little bit pro Catterall, you know, because and if I thought Josh was so much better last night than he was in the first one. I thought he was in with a shout of winning last night, but judges gave him 117, 111. It's a bit like when Lennox Lewis fought Evander all them years ago. I thought Evander had a better chance winning the second one. He did the first one, but sometimes I think judges and the whole event sways towards a certain fighter because of the controversy of the first one.
Yeah, I definitely think like judging off those scorecards last night, it looked like the judges were giving any close rounds to Catterall. Just with the, you know, maybe it's unconscious bias, maybe they're just feeling the pressure, like, fuck, we don't want to get this wrong again. This is a close fight. Like, who the fuck is winning this one? Like, in the first one wasn't a close fight. I thought Catterall won to the dogs in the street. Last night was razor thin for me.
Yeah.
A lot of people like that I respect in that, like, had it differently. That's cool, but I just thought it was a really, really close fight. I thought it was nip and tuck up to round 4. Catterall took over, Taylor rallied, and there was really nothing in it going into the last 3 rounds. There was going to be whoever was able to get into the ascendancy in the last quarter of the fight. But a cracking contest.
And then that left hand in the 11th was meaningful. Nope. Judges already had it finished.
Yeah, but I'd watch it again. I watch it. I think it's a fight that makes sense again for the two of them. Taylor is obviously, I think he's on the way out. He's not what he used to be. But for him, he looked dead at the weight 2 years ago. To get back comfortably to the weight, he's obviously lived a life outside the ring, even though there was accusations he wasn't. But he must have been pretty fucking fit to get himself back down to that weight and look comfortable last night. He didn't look dead or anything. So a really good fight, really good entertaining. The right guy won. Catterall has his moment now. He goes for a world title. Keep him away from Subria and Matthias, I would say. I don't think he has a chance.
It's a hot division, Rob. Who'd you put him in with?
I don't know. Who are the options that Eddie's floating? Because that's where you really want to look.
Matthias, really. Or
Isaac Cruz is there.
Isaac Cruz is a more winnable fight for me, I think.
Cruz, I think, I'd agree with Andy on that. It's the more winnable fight. He could dig the body, he could jab him, he could fiddle him about a bit, he could move, but Cruz is a fucking hell of an engine as well. Like, don't he?
It's the latter half of the fight you worry about that.
Guys, I just don't see Cruz fighting at 140 again. I think that was a one-off. He's fighting Valenzuela at 135, I think.
Right, okay.
So he's going to vacate that title.
Lopez, then you'd want, like, it'd be it's the big fight, you know, it's the guy that beat Taylor as well. Like, it's fucking, he's the man to beat. It's a bigger fucking money fight for him because Lopez is a bigger star and he opens his mouth up. And let's be honest, Matthias is going to kill him. Like, so let's fucking stay away from him. Like,
there's the other thing, actually. I mean, if they're Bob's meltdown there last night in the ring and that, he's not going to make Lopez against Catterall anytime soon by the sounds of it after all that fucking bollocks.
Pulled an Ozzie Smith, didn't he? Got in the ring and said, absolute disgrace. Bob Arum says that.
No, I think they run it back. I think they run it back. I think it's an easy thing to do and it's a safe play for both of the kids because I don't think Josh has got anywhere to go and I don't think Catterall, looking at them names we just spoke about, I don't think there's a natural one for him either. I think they'll do it
Taylor
again.
Fight again, though. I don't think really he'd be like fucking like I beat him the first time. I actually beat him last night.
Yeah.
I need a title. Like he needs a title, don't he?
That's a name we didn't mention. Yeah,
fight Barroso. He's got one of the WBA belts, you know.
Interim.
Barroso has he? That's it's kind of a fucking soft touch fight for him. But yeah, I get it. Like totally get it. You know what I mean? I get it. And then set up a big fucking payday for a world title with Taylor. Like it will be a big payday. Like it's an interesting fight, and I think the two of them will have a good fight if they fought 10 times. You know that way because it's a good class of styles. There's a bit of spice and a bit of spite involved there as well. They don't like each other, so it makes for a good domestic clash. And just on that, they're talking Paddy Donovan might fight Lewis Crocker down the line. I know Paddy Donovan looked really good last night. I thought Ritson was making him look nervous enough in some of the early rounds. He was putting pressure on him. He was cutting the ring. He wasn't giving him space to get his shots off. But when he started to put them together, he got him out of there. So actually, I had money on him in round 9 and Adam Ida for the first goal scorer yesterday. Andy, what about that for a bet?
Yeah, you lucky bastards. Need a referee to help you too.
Yeah, well, listen, we take whatever help we can get.
Aye.
But yeah, I like the look of Paddy Donovan. I think it's going to be a good fight with him and Crocker. Be interested to see the size difference because Crocker's a big fucker, like, isn't he? So, but that'll be a good fight in Belfast later down the line. But I didn't catch any American action that was on last night, so you'll have to fill me in. Oh, wasn't it?
It was Canada, aye. They did the
Oh,
ball.
fuck.
Same
Mate,
time
to be
zone.
honest with you, you've got about, mate, you spend about 10 minutes watching the best action because it was all
Seriously.
2-round knockouts. Seriously, aye.
Well, after
Mark
the fucking
Heffron-
Cody Crowley fucking press conference, I'm not watching any other Canadian boxing for a long time. I tell you that.
Mark Heffron got iced
Yeah.
in 40 seconds, I think it was.
Yeah,
Fucking hell.
teenagers losing their virginity lasts longer than Mark Heffron.
Hey, yo.
So let's see here. Yeah, I think that about covers it until getting onto the 5-on-5. And Rob, I always enjoy you when you're out there with nature. It's like Deepak Chopra talks boxing.
Yeah,
I'm only out in the garden. The lads think I'm out in the meadow, so I'm only out in the back garden. Fucking someone was like, he's out in the meadow with the songbirds. No, I'm just out in the garden.
Sorry, hanging here, but I just seen one comment's interesting. I just want to bring this up actually. Did anybody catch Ian John Lewis's interview during the week?
I didn't.
I've seen that one, Andy.
I've seen it. No, I've seen it, Andy, but I've not watched it. I've seen it. It come on my you know, when your recommendations on the side, it come up, but I've not actually watched it. Is there anything interesting in there?
I don't know. I just think he came across. Apparently, he came across pretty awful. I've not seen it myself yet. Actually, I just thought maybe some of you guys.
What's the interview about? All the fights he jumped into early on.
No, I think it was George Grove's podcast. Actually, it was on.
Oh yeah, I did see something about that.
I'll
yeah.
need to go back and watch it, but apparently it came across as I don't really want to say it, but pretty awful. I'll just leave it at that. So I just said I didn't know. Say that's what I was asking you guys to see if he's maybe heard it or anything like that. Maybe some of the guys in the chat can let us know what was actually kind of said. But
guys in the chat are commenting on the. I don't know the context. I couldn't give a fuck what Ian John was to say, but
Yeah,
to be honest with you, you know that way.
I would imagine that he's probably like blame shifting, possibly.
All right. Okay.
Well, I've just thrown it up, and it's on a George Groves podcast, Andy. You're right, but just underneath it, on an interview, is Nigel Travis saying it's effing mad, and he's referring to Ian John Lewis's comments. So yeah, so he's obviously said it. He's obviously gone balls deep, Ian John Lewis.
I need to go and watch that then.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Add that along with this for your weekday listening. So, but I guess we'll move on to the 5-on-5 card, or I guess we'll call it the 5-on-5 +1. And maybe we'll get that fight out of the way first, since all of our dreams were dashed about a month ago. Dimitri Bivol will be defending his title on this card against Malik Zanad, who is currently undefeated. Andy, I'm not too sure how I think Bivol, how up for this fight he is after getting this cancellation of a fight that was going to be a big payday for him, and something that he had been working towards for a long time. But all things considered, you would think probably Bivol by decision. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll probably go with that, mate. Probably, yeah. I'm trying to remember. I think I have seen this in Ed, actually. I'm trying to recall. I think maybe I've seen him on that card in Australia, possibly.
He fought Jerome Pampalone, who was undefeated at the time. Beat him by a majority decision.
Yeah, but yeah, yeah, you're probably right. Bivol probably decision. Yeah. Just look at the card, actually. I think other outside possibly. Yeah, I'm not really that inspired, to be fair. Actually, just looking at this, I mean, Hergovich does nothing for me.
We'll get to him.
Oh, I'll let you chime along a lot.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to those. Des, I know you're a big Bivol fan because you get to watch him. You get to nerd out on all the subtle things he does that makes him such an incredibly difficult fighter to beat. He's so polished in all these little aspects. He doesn't do anything super flashy, but he does everything well. And again, the word subtle for me just comes up. And hopefully at least he's willing to display that and get this fight over with. And because wouldn't you think maybe he wants to end this fight early, avoid a cut, avoid all the BS, so he's not the one holding up a better BF fight in the future?
Yeah, Dimitri Bivol, he's the Dennis Irwin of boxing. He does everything really well, 8 out of 10. But he'll never come out of his comfort zone. And I think Zinad will always be there. He'll pose a threat, although he's not a big puncher.
Roy Keane talking here.
Dennis, my roommate, I'd have him any team, yeah. So Bivol wins by decision. And in answer to your question, Matty, if you don't come out of first gear against an injured a Lyndon Arthur, you're not going to come out of first gear ever. Bivol by decision.
There you go. Rob, death taxes, Bivol by decision?
Oh, you beat me to that catchphrase. It was coming. 100%. Like, I'm not fucking calling anymore. You know how many times on the pod I said, Bivol is the supremely technical fighter. He doesn't just have the fucking Eastern European style. He has a little bit of fucking flair to him too. He can mix it up and he can take this guy out when he wants. But I forget the key point is he doesn't want to. He just wants to fucking go through the gears and look. Doesn't want to concede everything, do everything right. I think it'll be a stylish Bivol win. Probably 12 zip. 10 rounds too, something like that.
Yeah, I tend to think that you guys have to be right on that. Maybe he pulls out a stoppage victory. I just hope this isn't one of those situations, since it seems so clear that at times that God hates boxing, or he hates us being happy, and God knows in this weird sport what could happen. You just never know. Fingers crossed it goes off without a hitch, because we've seen weirder things. Does
God
the name?
God should hate boxing, by the way, Matt. You know
that? What's that?
He should hate boxing. God.
Why?
Look at the cunts he's put in it.
I'm telling you, it's a place for his misfits. But I say things like this. I just want to throw names out there like Dave Tiberi. Put that one out there. Who was the guy who beat Vladimir Klitschko in his first 20 fights?
Yeah,
Ross Purity, was it?
Purity, yeah.
Corey Sanders as well, beat him long after that.
Yep. Who was it to beat Tommy Morrison and delayed him fighting somebody?
It was
fighting the virus.
Ray Mercer, was it? No.
No. This is more.
You're thinking of Michael. You're thinking of more Michael Bent, aren't you?
No. Oh my God! You guys are making me go back here. Let's see here.
Tommy Morrison got knocked out. I'm sure it was the Ray Mercer fight, or was he champion at that time? You talking about the delayed the Lennox Lewis fight?
Sylvester Stallone beat him in a fucking decision on the
God.
cobbles.
You guys
No,
are
he knocked him
killing.
out. Uppercut. Right tap a Cadillac, Dave, if I recall.
One more round.
What a shitty movie.
more
That was the
round.
worst fucking movie of all time, man. It fucked up the Rocky franchise with that shitty Rocky 5. Fuck's sake.
Yeah, isn't it amazing that it would Rocky coming back at 60 years old to fight Antonio Tarver was better than Rocky 5?
You let the beast out, mate. You let the beast out. Beast's gone now.
Here. No,
Right, so
maybe
who was
right.
it?
It was maybe Michael Bent. Nope, you're right. Michael Bent was who?
But I've got to tell you something, mate. Michael Bent was a brilliant amateur. I think he won the World Amateurs. And who he turned over with? Do you know who his trainer was?
Who?
The great Manny Stewart. And he
Oh,
lost.
yeah.
I think he lost his debut, and he decided to give it a rest. And then he came back, beat Tommy Morrison, come over here and got beat by Herbie Hyde. But a standout amateur, one of the best amateurs on the US team for that period of time.
Yeah, he got his ass kicked by Herbie Hyde and called it a day.
Yeah, yeah.
Herbie Hyde used to love starting a fight in public, didn't he? He kind of was the matchroom blueprint.
He was
Early
brilliant.
days. He would have been brilliant these days, wouldn't he? Like he would have made more money to Chisora if he was around these days. Like just flip a table over, start a fight in public. He loved a bit of that. Like
Mate, listen, nobody's as badass as Larry Holmes running over fucking Cadillacs, bonnet and roof.
Trevor Barbic kicking Trevor Barbic.
Fucking drop kicked him at the throat.
Listen, I was looking at a fucking brilliant interview with Larry actually that you mentioned it during the week. I don't know why. DJ Vlad from Vlad TV. Sometimes he interviews boxers.
Oh, know him.
I actually fucking know him from years ago. He basically fucking introduced me to the States when I was doing music. Like I never got anyway, that's a fucking long sidebar. We'll go back there to that another night. But I was looking at Larry and he was talking about Don King, like, and he was talking about him gassing him up to fight Tyson, and he was like, I was retired, like I was chilling, I was in my mansion, I was fucking, you know what I mean? A dog comes up in the car and he's like, "Hey, are you gonna fight Mike in 8 weeks?" And he was like, "Come on, Don, they're not gonna fucking." And then he's just like, "That motherfucker laid 500,000 on me, 750 advance." He goes, "That's how Don do you. He promised you $1 million, he give you the 750,000 up front, and then you're never seeing the other fucking $250,000. That's the way it goes." He's like, "But I knew how to." He's like, "I knew how to manage that." He's like, "But all of a sudden." Goes the fight side, the money's in my pocket, and then the fight is brought forward by 6 weeks. He's like, "Shit, I've been out of the ring for fucking 3 years now. I got 6 weeks to get ready to fight Tyson." Don King, man, only in America.
DJ Vlad interviewed Adrian Broner, and he asked him, "Who's your hardest opponent?" And Adrian Broner said, "Well, I fought a lot of good guys, but the toughest kid I ever boxed." And do you know what Adrian Broner said?
Gavin Reese.
It was, yeah, Gavin Reese.
No way.
He said, people thought I made that look easy. But he said, if I didn't stop Gavin Reese, and I did, there was a chance he could have come back at me, and he was a real tough guy. And he paid him a lot of respect. Yeah, he paid him a lot of respect.
He beat a good Irish prospect, Murray. Andy Murray, was it? Lightweight.
Gavin Reese did.
Yeah. Beat him getting around the sides. He got around the sides, and I remember Oisin Fagan fought him first, and we were talking before, and I was like, "Whatever the fuck you do, don't stand in front of this fella because he's just a big robot." 1-2, like, and Reese ended up beating him, getting around the sides of the air, getting around the sides of him all night, banging him in the front. Oh, he was good. He was a good fighter, him, Reese, wasn't he? What happened to him after that? Fucking did he?
He retired after.
Retired, mate. He's in the weightlift now. He's fucking stacked.
Is he? Yeah.
He's massive.
Good, honest fight. He's a good, exciting fighter. I like watching him, man. He was good.
Yeah.
Didn't he have a 140-pound title and lose it to Kotelnik?
No, he lost it to. No, did he win it against? No, he won it against a French guy. I think he lost
Solomon Bay.
That's the one. But he was never a 140 fighter. 135 was where he should have been because he just. I think he would probably admit to it was just bad living. That's why he was now up at 135. So doing it 135.
Didn't Kotelnik beat him? Then Khan beat Kotelnik.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think so. Or did
Kotelnik was very good, wasn't he? Kotelnik was brilliant.
He was another one actually. As a good amateur, he went the distance.
Here's one for you. Where we're going off on fucking tangents. Where does Khan rank among the greatest British fighters of all time?
Good question. Yeah.
Top 25.
No, he's small. He's shorter than that. I think.
I'd have him top 50. Like out of my see, I can't go back to like fucking. There's certain British fighters like that predated my, my time, and I don't really even have a knowledge of the British scene like that where I could say such and such a. But in terms of world level, I think Khan was good value. Like, wasn't he?
Are you combining his amateur and his professional accomplishments, Rob?
Well, I can see you carry both, don't you? Because when we're talking Usyk and that, we do the same, don't we? So
I don't know. Des, you're probably more of an authority on this. I think you and Andy have a better response than I do. I'm just winging it.
I think Amir Khan is probably on achievements alone. If you know when you talk about Barry McGuigan, you talk about what he's done outside of boxing as well, and it all goes into the pot. And Barry McGuigan's got 2 Hall of Fame wins on his resume. He won a world title off a brilliant world champion. So you throw it all into the pot. I think when you talk about Amir Khan, you have to put into the fact that he's a 17-year-old going to an Olympics, and he all but one of the greatest amateurs that's ever laced them up in Mario Kindelan, Amir Khan, was a gold medalist. So he gets a silver, then he turns over, and you just think about this resume. He beat Luis Cazalo, he beat Zab Judah. What a win that is, Zab Judah. He beat Paulie Malignaggi, he beat Kotelnik. He's got Barrera on his CV as well.
Maidana,
yeah.
He's got Madonna on his CV. Devon Alexander. I think you've got to put a lot of respect on his name. And he's done a lot of it abroad as well. I think he's a very good fighter, Amir Khan. Really good CV.
He did a lot of good work against Southpaws. He really did.
I'm just letting you guys talk because I want to pull up his record actually. I would probably. I think Rob was going to say top 15. I would probably, if that was what he was going to say, then I would probably go along with that because you take into account what he done as an amateur on that as well, right? I mean, at a time when the British scene or the British amateur team, it was not as stacked as it has been in the last 2 or 3 amateur cycles, maybe even 4 amateur cycles. You go back to Sydney when Audley won the games. And even when the Gale won it, I don't think we had a lot of British fighters there. I think Amir Khan was one of those fighters. I think he was one of two British fighters, I think. And he was the youngest as well, remember? 19? I want to say 18, 19 possibly.
So, he was the only rep, Andy. He was the only Great Britain
only rep.
in
Only rep. There you go.
2004, yeah.
Yep.
So is
and he got beat off Kindelan, but he then had a one more amateur fight. It was against Kindelan in the UK on British TV. Frank put it on, and he beat him before he finally turned pro. And then you take into account what he done after, obviously recovering from Prescott. I mean, he was completely written off because his chin or his flaws really were showing up against Limond, for example. R.I.P. I think Gomez hurt him
Gomez
a
dropped
little
him
bit
as well, didn't he? Yeah.
Yep. And then Prescott really were like, well, okay, what are we doing
I
here?
remember seeing the highlight reels of that Prescott, and Sky were doing a bit on him, and he was like sleeping in a bunk bed in the gym in Colombia, and he was I think he was mandatory, wasn't it? Didn't they have to make that fight?
I can't mind.
Because I would have fucking, I think Warren had him at the time, didn't he? And I would have fucking avoided Breeders' Prescott like the plague, knowing what I know about fucking, I think we all saw it early, didn't we? Like he had, and I don't even necessarily think he had a bad chin, because he used to get up a lot like Amir Khan, but he used to hang it out there all the time. He never made that adjustment, no matter. He always just got a little bit greedy and left it out there. So there was always the chances of it. He was going to look like a baby foal at some stage during the fight, even though he was explosive. He had quick hands. He had that vulnerability, and that's what made him exciting. Like I really like Khan. I really like watching Khan actually when
he's a good fighter.
He rebuilt. That's on top of everything else. So he's rebuilt, and then you say the Kotelnik fight was one of his best performances in terms of like punch
what
selection.
A performance that was, yeah.
It really was in terms of shot selection and how he was just rapid fire. But on a run of victories for about 2-3 years. The Peterson
Andy,
fight.
Listen to this, right? He stopped Malignaggi in New York. He fought Madonna out in Vegas. I mean, one of the best fights I've ever seen. He goes and beats Zab Judah in 5 rounds in Las Vegas. I mean,
Judah was gone though at that stage. Judah was done. As an asterisk. He was done, and it was a bit. Was a low. He tried to sell it as a low shot. Judah didn't he? Was ended weird, didn't it? With a stoppage in the shot on the belt. I think Judah was trying to sell it as a low blow.
Didn't Khan try to do the same thing with Crawford?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Crawford, like that was sad seeing him getting beat on by Kell Brook. Like I know it was but nobody wanted to see the fight. The fight was fucking well past the sell by Dave, and I think that result would have happened. I think Brook had his number always. I always said that. I always thought that, and I always felt that he felt that Brook had his number, and that's why he didn't really want to make the fight. But then other people will tell you Cam was the one making the fight. I don't know, like really, but I think the result would have been different. But just to see the manner of it was tough. Like
I think when you've got a kid who's been to the Olympics, medalled when we didn't get medalists, let alone. I mean, we struggle, like Andy said, we struggle to send kids to Olympic Games. He not only went as a 17-year-old and got a silver medal boxing against one of the best kids that's ever done it in amateur boxing. Then he goes and wins 2 or 3 world titles. Then he does a lot of it, East Coast, West Coast. I think he's a top fighter, Amir Khan. I'd definitely put him on my top 10, top 15 British of all time.
I think the British boxing scene he's left a void in his wake, like in terms of stars. Like he was a genuine star. I think Amir Khan, like maybe not as big a star as he thought he was in his head when he talked about his American draws and stuff all the time, but he was supremely talented, fast hands, man, fucking, and vulnerable as well. Man. So always and he didn't really. He kind of fought everyone there was to fight. Like,
by the way, he was beating Canelo until he got knocked out.
Yep, he was ahead.
Well against Canelo.
And he
Canelo was waiting for that shot the whole
fucking he was lighting Danny Garcia up as well until he got fucking hit on the neck. He was fucking lighting him up. And Garcia just tied him with the left hook. That was the end, I think.
And he was robbed against Peterson too. He was absolutely robbed against Peterson.
Peterson popped after that fight as well, didn't he? There was overtime.
There was some cooking with the judges' scorecards. Remember, that was something to do with the hat.
The man in the hat.
That's
Richard Kimball was still looking for that man in the hat with the man in the one arm as well.
But I just got to ask you guys this because you probably know better than I do. So, is Lennox the best British boxer of all time if you claim him and don't just give him to Canada?
For me, I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah,
Best British heavyweight anyway, for sure.
Well, yeah, easily.
Aye.
I-
I'll go with that, I suppose.
I mean, I think the argument with Lennox in most discussions that matter is he a top 5 or a top 10 heavyweight of all time. I mean, he's somewhere in that
top three.
range.
Well, the thing is,
top 3?
Top 3, yeah.
Jesus, that's a rating. That's a rating.
My old man fucking status comes in here because I'm going to be fucking 46 in fucking 6 weeks' time, and I remember Lennox Lewis.
Count down the days, Jesus, Rob.
Stop! I remember watching Lennox Lewis on the days when he was on terrestrial television on ITV, and I've said this before on a pod. He fought an Irish American called Dan Murphy, and they had to apologize to the fucking viewers afterwards because the fight was so bad. He didn't really pick up until he went with Manny that time. And then
that's true.
As soon as he went to Manny, he changed him like a different fighter, fucking everything off the jab, finish you, fucking got heavier, lie on you, fucking tie up, be a dog if you needed to be a dog. He was a fucking tremendous fighter.
Do you remember the sparring footage? I think it was the build up to the possible the Holyfield rematch. And you've got Manny fucking basically egging on Lewis. He's in his ear and that. Says, "This motherfucker's wanting, he's wanting to play with you, boy." And one of the sparring partners he's side sweeping Lewis and tossing him over basically, and Lewis just loses his shit, man, and just goes fucking total dark and goes straight at the guy, starts launching punches at him and that. And you hear Manny, "That's what I'm looking at, Lewis. That's what I'm looking at." I'm like, holy fuck, man. Really just trying to get that dog out of him and that, because sometimes Lewis would just be too placid. He would just be happy to pull out the jab and that. But Manny was, you seen him when he was fighting Tyson and that. Sometimes he just wanted to fucking rev him right up.
I love that commentary footage when he's fucking having a go at him. He says, "You're going to fuck around and play around and get caught with something stupid. This man is ready to go." I fucking love that, man. Brilliant.
I'll find that.
What I'd say about... Sorry, mate. Go on, mate.
No, I was just going to say, I'll find that footage for you and I'll share it with you once I find it, because it's interesting to watch, because it's a round robin spar, So so it's like maybe every round it's a fresh sparring partner. And there was one guy, the whole camp was just desperate to fucking spoil with Lewis, and Manny was fucking at him the whole camp and that. This motherfucker's want to test you. He's want to test you, and you could see Manny was trying to test him at the same time, and and eventually it come out of him in the end and that, but it was tense viewing, like.
What I'd say about Lennox, I've two things that strike me about Lennox. Firstly, he had that haggler hog quality that whenever he got hold of someone, whenever he boxed them, they was never the same again. And if you look at his resume, people like Zelko Magrovic, 27-0. When Lewis got hold of him, Zelko was finished. Evander Holyfield was never the same after Lennox Lewis. Michael Grant, the big thing, not the same. Bofa wasn't the same. David Tua, the new Mike Tyson, ironing everybody out, starching people. Lennox switched him off and he never got back on it again. Rackman wasn't the same. Even the great Vitaly Klitschko, after Lennox, he had to have 2 years off. And Lennox, when he got hold of you, you stayed hit. He was so strong. He was so tough. He hit so hard. He had a brilliant jab. He could hook off that jab. Outstanding right hand. Good feet. And the second thing I say about Lennox, I've never experienced this before. I was at the Docklands Arena when he fought Franz Bofa. And when he got in the ring, the whole place had an eerie silence. You could hear almost like you just couldn't believe what you were seeing. It was true greatness. For me, Lennox, I might be biased and I might have stronged it a little bit, but I've got Muhammad Ali in there, and then you can talk about your next 3 or 4, but Lennox is definitely part of that group for me.
Anyways, we will have to end that conversation now, actually, so we can preview this card. I just looked at the time. I'm like, oh, wow, we were just getting close here. So
Doing Wellington who? That's what I'd say.
Anyways, I'm going to go.
Wellington.
I'll tell you, I'm going to go with this card in order of how interested I am in the fights, from least to most. We already talked about Bivol, just getting that out of the way because it's not part of that 5-on-5 premise. I think it's actually still on ESPN after the DAZN pay-per-view. What a world we live in. The one I'm least interested in, Andy, tell me why I should be interested in this one more. Willie Hutchinson against Craig Richards.
I don't know if this is a title eliminator of some sort, mate. To be fair, Creed Richards is a good domestic fighter. Willie Hutchinson is, again, he want to be a kind of comeback in that. He needs to win this fight if he's going to be making any sounds or any knock-ins at world level. And Richards, I think, I can't mind his last fight, but I do know he lost to Buatsi a few fights back at least anyway. So Hutchinson, I'm sure in his last fight, was a first or a second round knockout, done it pretty quick anyway against, I can't mind who it was, but the opposition hasn't been great, to be fair, as well. And I think the only time he stepped up, actually, possibly, was Lennox Clark beat him. So yeah, if his time's going to be, it's going to be now. So he's got to win this fight, to be fair, and I think he probably will, actually. I'll probably go with, I'm going to say he wins maybe a tight decision, actually. Willie Hutchinson has, but yeah, I'm not going to tell you to look at it to watch it, mate. To be fair, each to your own. To be fair, but as I say, I'm not really kind of like hyped for this card. To be fair, next week. I mean, the main fight I wanted to see isn't on it, obviously, and hopefully Nick Ball wins. I like his style of fighting, and I'm rooting for Daniel Dubois. Hopefully he ends.
Oh yeah, that'll be the best thing for
We'll
the
get
sport.
to that one.
Wouldn't it?
We'll get to that one.
If Dubois stops him I'm going to give Dubois fight of the year right now.
Okay, we'll get to that. We'll see. We'll get to that fight. Let's see here. Actually, you know what? That is the next fight as far as my interest level goes. Dubois against Hrgovic. Hrgovic still carrying that undefeated record. Had a close fight with Zhang. Dubois did a good job beating the snot out of Gerald Miller in his last fight out. Rob, where are you going on this one? I do believe that Dubois
Who's in this one?
is
Dubois and Hrgovic.
Dubois and Hrgovic. Yeah, I do believe Dubois is a fair bit of an underdog here. Let's see what number we're popping on that one right now. Let's see here. Dubois is a small underdog. He's paying a little bit better than 3-2.
I've never seen a Hrgovic fight that I liked or that I wanted to watch back. So that'll tell you what I think of Hrgovic's style. I think he's okay. He's a big, awkward unit. I don't think he brings anything of excitement or note to the heavyweight division. He's nothing we haven't seen before. He's nothing you'd want to fucking pay money for. And Daniel Dubois has his flaws, but he's only a young kid and he can fucking whack. And that's what you want. You want entertainment. Arguably gave Usyk a better fight, even though he got stopped, than Joshua and Fury in terms of putting it on him, or trying to put it on him at least. For a guy who lacks that kind of experience, for him to hang in there and come back after the Joyce defeat and the Usyk defeat and answer some questions, I think it says a lot about him. And people are questioning his heart. Hrgovic has been at it during the week. He seems hyped up. Never really seen him that excited before or whatever. He's a very quiet guy, but maybe he's learning now that you have to open your mouth to sell fights. He's not the best trash talker in the world, but he has two fucking dynamite punches. So I would love to see Dubois knock him out. Having said that, could I see Hrgovic lie on him, fiddle him around, tire him out, maybe take him out later down the stretch? Either is possible. If I was pushed on it, I'd probably say Hrgovic will win it, but I really want Dubois to win it. I really want Dubois to stop him.
You want Dubois to stop him. Well, we'll see what happens. That one, he is the underdog. Hutchinson, just a little bit of an underdog, Andy. Just a little bit, paying just a bit more than even money on that one. Let's see here. And Dez, next up on my interest level, we're starting to get into fights that I do think are particularly interesting, at least. We have Raymond Ford defending his belts against Nick Ball. I think, Des, I think this is a very interesting fight. Going to have Nick Ball doing the short man thing. We're trying to work his way in there, work the body, land those over-the-top punches. And then Ford, who just won his title over Kolmatov. I mean, he's definitely got some dog in him. This does have the potential to be a shootout, but I don't think that's the fight that Ford wants. He is a slight favorite coming into this fight. How are you feeling it?
Yeah, I can see why they like on the back of Ball and Vargas. I can see why the bookies are just edging with Ford, and I think I might be the same. Ball's been fast tracked, and we've seen him look brilliant. It seems like 18 months ago that Ball was going against Isaac Lowe, and now he's getting against Raymond Ford, and I think he's been fast tracked. And I think Vargas showed there's levels to this. And although I thought Ball did enough to maybe nick it, it showed me that Ball's not the monster that we've been told he is. He's a good fighter, but there's a lot of work to be done. And I think Raymond Ford's a hard fight. I'm going to edge for Raymond Ford as long as Raymond Ford don't get lazy.
Yeah, my hunch on that one, Des, is just I think that if Ray Vargas was a little bit more of a puncher, I don't think that that Ball was going to have the steam to do his late round work. Whereas I think we've seen, even though he's not a massive puncher, I do think that Ray Ford has enough power behind him to where if he gets in similar body work, Ball's not going to have that opportunity.
Yeah, and I've seen Ford sometimes switch off in fights and do just enough to win rounds. You can't let a buzzsaw like Nick Ball in. But I think if Raymond Ford turns up and he's switched on, I still think this is a hard fight for Nick Ball, and I think he's had 2 hard fights back to back here, and I think Ford just nicks it. Ball's in it, but I think Ford nicks it.
Yeah, that would be the feeling with the books. We'll see. I kind of get that same feeling that you do, Andy. Are you feeling any differently, or are you
Nah,
going with
mate, I'm agreeing with these guys. I mean, Ford's he was a good amateur as well back in his day, and that fought some of the top amateurs back in his time as well. I'm sure he fought Duke Reagan as well back in the nationals. So yeah, and plus you're right, Ball did take a lot trying to kind of get into distance and that against Vargas, and that had to fight the full 12 rounds. And how long ago was that, Cat? About 4 months ago.
I think that was on the same day as Ford versus Kolmatov for some reason, but Ford Kolmatov was in the evening on a top rank card.
Right.
For some reason, I get that feeling. I could be wrong, but both of them were in pretty rough fights recently.
So about 3 months ago then.
Yeah, it's in March, yeah.
Yeah, so Ball's basically had like a couple of weeks off and straight back into camp. So yeah, I just hope he's fully fit for it. He'll need to be actually. It says it's a hard one actually, but yeah, I hope he does it because I say I'm a fan of his style and that type of thing as well. But it was a hard ass in his last fight, but he certainly wasn't disgraced. Actually, gave Vargas what he could handle. Like.
Yeah, that was a decent enough fight. Ford Kolmatov also a good fight. This one could end up stealing the show as far as action goes. We will see. Another fight that that this is definitely in the I'm looking forward to category, and I think this is worthy of group discussion, is Hamza Shiraz against Austin Ammo Williams, both coming into the fight undefeated. Rob, this is a very good fight. Shiraz is a fairly big favorite in this one. Williams paying about 2-1 as the underdog. But I think this is just a fantastic scrap. Are you looking forward to this one?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to a couple of things, not just the level of ability, but what they both look like when the pressure's on. Because this is a bigger domestic fight. Obviously, it's the 5v5 and that, like, so it's the cross promotional thing. My guy beat your guy. I like Hamza Shiraz, man. I think technically he's very good. Haven't really seen him put a foot wrong yet. Can punch a bit, so I'd favor him maybe to get the stoppage down the stretch.
There'll be I don't know. I'm pretty high on Ammo. I think he's got a lot to offer. Des, I think he's arguably might have had a better level of opposition in the pro game at times too. What are your thoughts?
I like Hamza, but I've not seen enough of Hamza at the right level. He turned over in 2017, and he's still been kept lukewarm. And I know he's done a lot of traveling. I know he's training out in America, which will help him. But I said when he beat Liam Williams after 7 years as a pro, 6.5 years as a pro, he's still fighting a spent Liam Williams. So either someone in that camp don't trust him, or he's not ready yet. I don't know. Ammo Williams will tell us, because I think Ammo can fight. This is a good one. My gut feeling is Hamza wins, but he needs to win. This is the one where we find out a little bit about him. I think Hamza just nicks it. I think he either stops him late or gets a decision.
Yeah, this one is definitely, whether it's an official eliminator or not. It's a proper levels eliminator. Andy, they do share River Wilson Bent as a common opponent. Both of them stopping him, but Shiraz getting him in the second, and Williams taking him all the way to the 7th or the 8th, I do believe. What are your thoughts on this one, Andy?
Yeah, I can't really add too much more, mate. I do agree. It's an interesting fight. It's probably I think you read out the odds there and that as well. It's close to 50-50. I don't really know actually. As I say, what Des was saying there, I kind of hold the kind of same thing with Amon Williams. I haven't really seen enough of him at that level either. So it's really both guys have got questions to answer here actually as well. So I think both guys have got a bit of dig on them. So maybe we might see a couple of guys, or maybe a couple of guys getting dropped a couple of times. But I think probably will go the distance. So it's a good scrap actually. And 160 is starting to kind of stack up a little bit now in terms of like some of these lower title fights and that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, well, I think I'll go Hamza on points. That's what I'll go with just now.
All right. Consensus there. Is it bias from that side of the pond, or is it a sound prediction? We'll find out. But that is one of a few fights that I'm looking forward to. The one I'm most looking forward to is the big guys. Of course, that's going to be Zhilei Zhang against Deontay Wilder. Both are coming off of defeats to Joseph Parker. Wilder in his fight against Parker just could not pull the trigger, looked reasonably disinterested, went the 12-round distance with them. Zhang also going the 12-round distance, but doing well early in the fight and even getting another knockdown in the 8th round. But Parker just refused to give up and was able to eke out the decision victory in that one. Zhang definitely not having much of a gas tank after going into the last half of the fight. And Rob, even though Wilder is the underdog and he could be just shot to shit, who knows? My hunch is that if Deontay Wilder is still standing when the 7th bell rings, Deontay Wilder is going to win this fight. What are your thoughts, Rob?
Oh my God. I'd like to see Wilder back in the mix in the heavyweight shakeup and throw fucking banana skin in here like into the proceedings, but I can't see it as much as Joe Parker fought to a game plan and kind of nullified him and took it to him the last time. It was 7-8 rounds gone before Wilder had thrown a punch, and we talk about like lads never being the same again. Earlier, like Des making good points about Lennox and Hagler. B-Hop was another one. Anyone that fought him twice never was the same. Marciano, anyone that fought him twice and was never the same afterwards. There's something in that. I don't know, like if he's just left it in the ring, because I thought he looked extremely gun shy against Joe Parker, and Parker's head was on the line. Not often. He changed his style a little bit, and he was taking his head off the line as he was coming in, but it wasn't like he was impossible to find. He's found fighters
Especially
over
with
the
an
years.
uppercut, right? I mean, there were moments.
Well, he's found fighters over the years at similar levels quite easily as the fight went on, even if it's in an unorthodox way or not. He'll get a chance to touch you with that fucking Thor's hammer, like. But he looked reluctant to throw it, and a guy Zhang's size, he may be able to absorb some shots, especially if they're not fucking forthcoming. Like, he may be able to close the distance on him and get him on into a bad position. And Zhang is probably bigger than anyone Wilder's ever fought before. I'd imagine he's going to come in around the same size as Fury, 270 or that. Like, would he be 265, something like that? So
he was 290 against Parker.
Yes, he's going to be bigger again. He's going to be the biggest fucking fighter Wilder's ever fought. Wilder's 214, 220 maximum.
He's also not hard to find. And most of the fighters, Rob, let me say this. Most of the fighters, other than Fury, who, at his best was his own animal, the fighters Wilder's had trouble with are the fighters that are, much shorter than him and getting underneath things, all the way from Artur Spilka to Joseph Parker. This is one of the few times he's going to be punching up. I think it might be fine. I don't know.
I don't. I can't. I would love to see it. I'd love to see Wilder go out and slump Zilly Zhang in the first round. I think it'd be fucking. It'd be fucking exciting. Be good for the sport. To get things shaking again, and have Wilder back in the mix. But I just think the 3 fights with Fury, after taking it out of him, he's 214 pounds. Tyson was 275 or something on one of the nights, wasn't he? And not known as a big puncher, but accumulative damage throughout the fights, and eventually fucking, in each fight that he lost by stoppage, he took fucking hell of a beating along the way. Like, even though he had his moments, he took a hell of a beating in the first fucking fight, and the second fight again, the knockout. Like, I just think he's not the same, and I think Zilly Zhang gets on top of him and drowns him. I can't see this fight going past. I think maybe 8 rounds. I think Zilly Zhang does the business here. Like,
you think Zhang will still have something in the tank in 8 rounds? I don't know.
I can't. Like, what do you see happens? Like, does Wilder go out and set up a shot, like throw a blinder to the body, right hand over the top, and stop Zilly Zhang fucking in his tracks? Maybe, but I can't see. I think he's too big for him. I think he's gonna, and I think where Wilder is at, I think it'll be a stoppage. I really do. Stoppage by retirement, or stoppage by fucking pulling him out.
Okay, well, I don't know. Des, maybe I'm just a Wilder fanboy. Actually, I'd admit that there's a fair bit of truth. I've been a big fan of his for a long time, but I just think styles make fights. And like I said, if Wilder's still standing after the 7th, I think it's his fight, to be honest with you. And also, he struggles with guys who are elusive and get low and have a lot of head movement. That's not Zilei Zhang. Styles make fights.
Yeah, and I think Wilder's been brilliant for boxing. I think he's been absolutely amazing for boxing. He's done it on the East Coast, the West Coast. He's travelled. He was prepared to go to Russia. We've seen him over here. What he done to Robert Helenius would take eight coppers to get Helenius down. He done it with one punch. He ices people. He's got that brilliant power. But I think you've got to put a lot more into the pot now. I think that trilogy, Rob makes some really good points. The trilogy with Tyson is taking a lot out of both fighters. I think it's taken an awful lot out of Deontay Wilder, who's ever so brave, who went back in that third time and looked death in the eye and was prepared to die that night. He's so brave, but it's taken an awful lot out of him. I think his legs are too small. I think he's too light. I think he has issue with his gas tank. I think pushing Zhang around, feeling Zhang's weight, hitting Zhang's body, throwing in big punches, loading up. I don't think he'll put a dent in Zhang quite as easy as what he has other people. I think it'll take so much out of him. Sometimes, and what I saw against Joe Parker, sometimes if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And I think Deontay Wilder right now, we've seen the best of him, and it's done. And I've got no faith in this bloody trainer. I've seen a few things online, what they're doing and how they're training. I just think he overthinks everything. I think he's a bit of a pseudo intellectual. I think Wilder collapses somewhere around 7-8, and Zhang wins.
Okay, you and Rob and pretty sound agreement.
You got to think when the weight difference is that big, it's the equivalent of, say, fucking Subriel Matias going in against Bivol. You know what I mean? The weight difference is that, even though they're both heavyweights, there's 40 pounds in the difference, or something like 45 pounds in the difference.
And he's not cute. Wilder's not a cute heavyweight. He's forwards or backwards, throws big shots. You can lean on him. We saw that with Tyson, leaning on him. Rob, I'm with you. I was a big Wilder fan. I still am. I think I appreciate so much what he's done for boxing. He's been brilliant start to finish. But I remember watching a Parker fight, and I said, this guy is done. Absolutely done.
Yeah, I can't. Maddie's going to go. What's the odds on a Wilder win here, Maddie? By the way, what's the book saying?
He's a bit better than even money. I'd say it's like 4-3. I think would be the number.
Interesting. I would have just made Zhang the favorite, but we see what we reckon.
No, I mean Zhang. No, he's paying. Yeah, Zhang is just a slight favorite, but he's a favorite. So, I don't know. Andy, are you going with the boys in what seems to be conventional wisdom? It seems that these odds with, just Jane getting just a little bit less than even money, might as well take them, huh?
Well, I'll just repeat some words you just said there. I don't know, because taking what all the lads were saying there, especially on Wilder, what Rob's saying that I totally agree with. I was going to say the exactly same thing actually, because obviously what we seen with Fury last week, we were asking the question: is it and we did say it the week before in the build up to the fight, and that we were going to ask the same question that as well. Had the Wilder fights taken too much out of Tyson? We said the same thing after Wilder's last fight against Parker. I was waiting on that fight, waiting for Wilder to start cutting loose, and it never happened. It never came. He's been in one of these mushroom trips, taking these these trips.
That's right, the fucking DMT.
The DMT, the toad.
This is important. Yes.
The toad. He's trying to connect with something, so to speak. Has that taken the fight instinct? I don't know. I'm not wanting to get deep into psychological stuff and that. I don't know. He's not the same fighter anymore. What I will say is this: if he is, as what we'll say is that he was, I'll say he fought stoically against Parker, right? If he is as stoic as that as early doors, and Zhang catches him with that right hand that he caught Joe Joyce with, Wilder's in banging trouble, by the way. And it's going to then ask the question: how much do you really want it? Because you're willing to die against Tyson Fury, are you willing to fucking conjure up, some death wish again, to go again? I don't know. I really don't know, because he never showed it against Parker. Zhang looked awful as well against Parker. So it's a crossroads fight. Both guys are for the road out, and it'll be the survival of the fittest out of this one, I would imagine. And I don't know, Matty. I really don't know. I really don't have a horse in the race. Both guys have had their chance, have had their day. Wilder, I'm concerned about, because obviously the punishment he's took, he's went away and tried and reached himself with some, psychedelics and all that type of stuff. Fought awfully when he returned. To me, it just strikes a guy who's back for a second payday after all this and that. So I'll probably go with Zhang, but I didn't say it with any great confidence, because if it goes late, Zhang's not a great tank, but at the same time, Wilder didn't show me nothing in the last fight that he's going to do anything when the fight gets to the latter half. And Zhang might just have enough power about him just to kind of keep Wilder honest all night long, and he might land something early to have Wilder think, I'm not going to be standing here for I'll just see you at the fight, whatever. I don't know, but I'll go Zhang on points, mate.
Zhang on points. Wow, thinking this fight to go the distance. I was looking to see if there was an over-under number or a odds for the fight to go distance. All that. Didn't see anything yet on that, but I don't know. I don't think Wilder is quite done. I think he has one more in him, and this is it. I think probably this one is it. Depending on how he looks, maybe he'll have another shot. But I think he's got one more decent win in him, and it is going to be against the big Chinese feller, Jalil Zhang, however you order that. But I do believe, guys, we need to get on to the value of the week at this point in time. It's been fantastic discussion, though. Let's see here. We've already listened to that Bob Arum one earlier in the day. Let's see here. Let's do a call. Let's do this one. It's a little bit long, but there was a press conference for Joe Joyce against Derek Chisora, and guys, there is just a good number of highlights on this.
Sauna place, so when I got a message.
In your where?
The Russian sauna, bathhouse. I thought the press conference was like tomorrow, not today.
Never mind.
By the time we finish the fight, someone's gonna have less brain cells left in their brain, so.
Yay!
I don't mind. I don't mind.
Well, I hope that's not the case. I just hope you got something to start out with.
Do you feel as though Derek Chisora's been avoiding you over the years at all, Joe?
Don't shut up. I don't avoid nobody. Shut up. Go away.
You told me to my face you weren't going to fight me, mate.
What are you talking about, man? Go on. I know you want to ask some questions. Go on, you little rat.
Do you think he's still the same juggernaut that he once was? What do you think?
As long as you can walk with 2 feet and you can still get your cock up, if you're a man, you're good. You understand? So as long as jogging his cock up, he's fine. you understand? So anything else is just a bonus. Is that my food?
Yeah, I think he owes us a five, guys.
Do you know, Frank Warren, I want to be honest with you. Do you normally I come here in the after hours when I'm on fucking MDMA and I'm partying hard like a motherfucker. And I'm surprised I'm here today. I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, where's the DJ?
I've never, when I've been down there, you've never been here.
After I beat you up, can we smoke weed together? You're a grown man. Don't worry about it. Don't look at them, though. Them motherfuckers smoke weed as well. Don't let them fucking fool you. We smoke weed together. Don't worry about it. Come to my house. Everybody comes to my house.
Sounds like me fucking talking to myself in the mirror on Monday morning, geeing myself up for the week. That does.
I think Metropolitan Finance, if you get sent that video, might be chapping doors first thing Monday morning.
Oh my god!
Metropolitan Finance.
Mr. Gentlemen, the British
Warm
board's
for your
got to be
list?
watching that, wouldn't you think, and being like, "Did we let this guy fight?" Hey.
MDMA, fucking love it, man. Jesus. He's taking
Sorry, I'm
Mandy.
just over at Derek Chisora's house.
Yeah, we got up the Del Boys for some Mandy. Let's go. Oh, who's Mandy? I don't know about that.
Unfortunately, Dom couldn't join us this week, and he had all the GAD material himself. But we do have plenty here. See here, here's Anthony and his belt collection. Says few belts over the years. I had the prize top left arrive a few days ago, and it's a Matchroom Boxing Hall of Fame award, which made me extremely proud to achieve. The people they've worked with over the years is unreal. So to be amongst them in there, I was proud to say the least. Just adding it to his collection there.
Well, if anyone deserves to be in the Matchroom, yeah, if anyone deserved to be in the Matchroom Boxing Hall of Fame, it's Tony Bellew, because he beat the fucking drum for Matchroom over the years, didn't he? He was the #1 Matchroom cheerleader, so good for him. It looks like the logo off the packet of M&Ms, by the way, the fucking award.
I say congratulations, Anthony. Let's see here. Garcia's getting his hair tested.
Oh, that's going to come back hot as well. I don't know why he keeps doing this.
I need to do drugs then, mate. I'll never get fucking drug tested for fucking hair.
That is a win. That's an absolute win. I never even thought about that as an advantage, Andy. Good for you. Let's see here. The good doctor getting involved in things here says, Alexander Usyk said Tyson Fury, an actor, plays for the camera. My advice is to Usyk. Tyson Fury is different from the heavyweight boxers you defeated. You're a fine boxer with uncommon stamina, but Fury will knock you out if you really box more than he boxed Wilder. You can't win.
All right, chill out, Adrian from fucking Rocky 4.
He's like, he's becoming. What's that guy's name again? Is it D-Ware? No, D-Ware. Dwyer. Him does all the kind of fight predictions and that. That's what Dr. Joe's turning into.
Yeah, the okra has failed him, gentlemen. The okra has failed him. See here.
There's no easy way out.
Got a little bit of a fake tan going on in Taylor here.
I didn't understand why folk do it.
He's let the side down there for the Scots, Andy. You wouldn't catch you with a fake tan on you. No
What you fuck, mate? Mate, it would take me a fucking month of sunbathing to get white. I'm pale blue, no fucking white.
For Andy to get tan, Andy would have to get skin cancer in the process. I don't think it's a worthy prospect.
I think you get 3rd-degree burns, man, and get a tan, for fuck's sake.
Let's see here. All right, and that's all the images we got, but we have plenty more videos. Let's see here. Looks like we got some Barry Hurt
Simon
action.
Wright about Eddie and Conor Ben.
Yeah. I mean, this goes deeper than that. This goes down to the type of people you are. I don't think we particularly handled the Conor Ben situation very well from the outside. And bear in mind, I am the outside. Eddie's the boss. But the one thing I know in my heart is that kid's clean. And I know, and I'm not even going to give you a reason for why I know it. I know the family, I know the boy, I go into his soul, and I know he's clean. But whether it's provable clean or whether he's got to have, and he'll have that stigma around him for the rest of his career, whatever happens. I just want to see the boy. Listen, it's 2 years now.
Oh, 2 years.
Well, if Barry Harn's saying it, then I think we should just give him his license back. He's clean. He looked into his soul. There's nothing more to fucking see here.
We've got Barry Hearn here, who's wanting to be AKA Christopher. What's his fucking name back in the days of the Satanist? What was his name? The actor, Christopher, old horror guy.
Oh fucking! Fuck me!
Tipping my tongue. What's his fucking
You're
name?
fucking me up now. I can't remember. You got me the same.
Winding me up. What's his name? It's just flowing out of me there.
Oh, shit.
Christopher Lee.
Christopher
you go.
Lee.
Christopher Lee. There we go. Fucking hell.
Get back in your coffin with a packet of Stella.
I can see into his soul. Fuck off, Barry.
And we had one person in Saudi Arabia who was quite particularly disappointed that the fight was not stopped last week when Usyk had Fury along the ropes.
I tell you, there was nobody happier last week than fucking David Hay.
Looked like a peek behind the curtain there in the climactic scene of a trouble, doesn't it?
I don't know what they did, but somebody sure pissed off Stevie Wonder.
I think that was David Hay's sex
whoever
face
dressed him
there, by
normally.
the way. Rob.
Let's see here.
Sorry, Andy, what was that, dude?
Was that David Hay's sex face it was putting on there?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It looked like the climactic scene behind the trouble there. Fucking what the fuck? What the fuck?
Probably reacts the same when somebody leaves his harem.
He's the number 2 that, by the way, Des, that you were talking about, the greatest heavyweights of all time.
Bob Shagger.
We got our good friend Ryan Garcia. He's on the patrol for a new wife.
Ryan Garcia on the hunt for wife number 4 in Dubai. He is currently taking auditions. If you can box, that will give you an advantage.
Jab right. Good. Jab right. Jab right. Now move. Keep going. That was good. Yalla, that was good.
Ooh. Well, I'd say
Wife number 4. What age is he? 26. Fucking hell.
You don't have to marry them all. He's like Evander Holyfield. Just fucking date someone, right? You don't have to fucking marry all of them. I would say she's worth adding to the stable, but he might make a fatal error because she's too good on the inside for him, and he's too vulnerable. You know that way he hangs his chin up, so he might be asking for trouble there. Like
wife number 4, man. I mean, fucking hell, engagement times on the switchboard, but for fuck's sake, man. Surely
he just goes to Vegas for the weekend, only gets married, comes back, fucking, you know what I mean?
That just goes to prove that Ryan. That just goes to prove that Ryan Garcia's mental illness is in fact legit. If he's getting married 4 times before he's even 30, man.
That's what we need him up in front of the commission now. Somebody stop it.
And let's see here. We also have 3 entries for Mr. Frank Warren.
He negated a lot of the stuff he'd done, and it was a fight of 2 halves for me. And certainly with those uppercuts that he was throwing, he caught him with. He was catching him with those, some good body shots, but the uppercuts definitely gave him a lot of problems. And the end of that 6th or 7th round, when he went back to that corner, I mean, he was struggling until he kissed the crucifix.
Well, God's there for all of us, isn't he? I suppose.
Well, there you go.
One, number 2.
Sort of closing out, I saw some reports in the Daily Mail that 20 million people reportedly illegally streamed the fight. Did you see those reports? And, you know, what was the impact? Obviously, you wanted the fight to do well on TNT box office.
It has done well, but those, you know, that's what they're fighting against all the time. And, you know, all you're doing, you're stealing from the boxers' purses. That's what you're doing. Those guys are entertaining you. You do those illegal streams, you are stealing from their purses. Facts of life.
And number 3.
Carl Froch felt that Fury was a bit, you know, nervous going into the fight. Did you see any different demeanour from Tyson? Was there anything different about him going into the fight?
I don't pay any credence to what Carl Froch says about Tyson because he's a hater. He's a member of the Flat Earth Society, as you well know, and the Flathead Society.
Oh man!
Amazing.
giving a lot of good work there.
I
This
love
week.
Frank Warren, man. I don't care. I know we're not I'm not biased towards either of them, but I can't. It's hard to hate Frank Warren, man. I don't give a fuck. He's a fucking legend.
The fucking front of him calling someone else a hater.
Him and Eddie now best mates as well. Like, hilarious this is. Like.
Right. And why don't we one more time play the Bob Father's reaction after the scorecards were read for Taylor versus Catterall.
Important to you now.
Hey,
you want to give? Bob wants to speak.
I saw the fight like everybody else. Those scorecards were a disgrace. Were an absolute disgrace. And I really feel sorry for Josh. I thought he won the fight, but those scorecards were ridiculous. And that's the lesson. I will never, ever allow an American fighter to come here with this British board scoring the fight. Those scores were ridiculous.
Well, let's try and bring in.
Go on there, Bob Father,
Go
man.
on,
No
Bob.
fuck's given. Stand your grin, mate. Double down.
Fucking into him. This is where you miss Wellington, because he would have dubbed Ozzie Smith's voice onto that saying absolute disgrace, wouldn't he? He would have done that. Like.
Well,
Brilliant
Andy,
for the Bob Father.
Andy, what do you have this week?
Not very much, mate. Obviously, one fight we missed out this week actually was the Lawrence Okolie fight, so I'll just throw that one in.
Oh, give me one for not mentioning the Okolie fight.
No, mate, we'll just put this whole fight into the Belly of the Week because fucking the guy that he fought the pole, man, bum, Euro bum, right? And of course, if you look at the Bridgeweight rankings, right, they're full of Euro bums. Right, and Okolie celebrated that like it was like that title meant something there last night. Then you got Joe Gallagher coming out talking about unification fights at Bridgerweight. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there only one sanctioned body that recognises cruiserweight, or did I get that wrong?
I think there's two now. I think WBC and WBO for some reason.
Well, whatever, man. So anyway, one for Okolie and one for that Eurobum that he faced as well. That was honestly that. I tell you what it was like. I mean, everybody has slagged Okolie for since he turned pro, right? He went into that fight there, and you would have thought he was facing. Honestly, you would have think that was the type of opponent he would have faced coming up through the ranks, and he's beat him for a so-called world title. Didn't just beat him, fucking destroyed him. Had him doing 3 times, I'm sure. The guy wasn't even up to it. All Okolie had to do was stepped him and just start throwing shots. So I would just throw that, and I think that was just shit, man. It was Eurobum card. It was like going back to the Eurosport days back to the 90s. That's how fucking bad it was.
And now he can claim he's a 2-weight world champion. Maybe that's the true value of the week for him. Right on.
And one for the IBF. I think they're going to fucking strip music again. So I think that's doing the room. So.
Okay, well that's dumb. Des, do you have anything?
No, mate. I'm just an observer. I'm just hanging around listening to you guys.
Okay, I might ask you for a vote. Don't be. Rob, what do you got?
No, it's a light week this week, like for Bellews of the Week. I enjoyed all the nominations. So I think they were pretty strong this week. Like Chisora, rinsing the life out of his last ever probably pay-per-view. Or is this a pay-per-view fight? Probably. But yeah, knows how to sell a fight by just being himself, like, and doesn't give a shit. So yeah, that was pretty good.
All right. So we had what the boys just nominated there, or did not nominate there, as you may see it. We also had Bellew and his new belt, Garcia and his hair sample, the doctor and his belief that Usyk could not win under any circumstances, and Taylor's fading pan. We also had our good friend Derek Chisora in his comments at the Joe Joyce press conference, Bob Arum in his comments on the scorecards following the Taylor Catterall fight, David Hayes' reaction to the 9th round of Usyk versus Fury, Barry Hearn on Conor Benn's innocence, Ryan Garcia and his seeking to find a new wife, as well as Frank Warren with, count them, not 1, not 2, but 3 separate submissions. Andy, who are you going for?
After you review it like that, it's actually quite solid, actually, because they were quite solid, the ones for Frank and that. Ryan Garcia, solid. Fourth wife, hunting. Intervention required there, one, rapidly. I'm happy to do it for a fee. Friends should do it for free, though, just in that regard. But what was the other one, mate? Just the no belt. Barry Hearn, I really liked that one. He saw into Conor Ben's soul. I think that one's pretty solid, to be fair. But I've got to go for the Bob Father, just to get up there in front of thousands of natives, local natives. He's like, fuck this shit, man. He's throwing a hand grenade in there. So Bob Father for me.
One for the Bob Father. I don't know about that. I think Des, this week I got to throw in for Del Boy.
I'm going to back up David Hay, because that was everybody last week, by the way. David Hay, that was everybody last week at that moment.
Okay. Des, I got to go Del Boy. I mean, just the rapid fire that he had for his drug-fueled talk was fantastic.
I think Barry Herman was interesting, because you'd have thought someone in Barry's position would be saying, we want to get to the bottom of this. We want to unwrap all this, unpack all this. We want to be forensic about this. But he almost looked at Jim White and said, "Come on, he's been out 2 years. Give the kid a break." You know what I mean? Like, okay then, right? So that's the man at the head of the sport. Okay, but I'm going to give it to the Bob Father, because what I like about Bob is you got all these fellas in the ring: Diamante, Eddie Hearn, Jack Catterall. They're all in the ring. Mr. Big. And the Bob Father walks in, takes the mic off someone, and they all stand there like naughty schoolboys while he's talking. I'm going to go for Bob Arum. I can't believe he's as old as he is and gets around the world. 93 and goes to every show he promotes. I think he's brilliant.
He's hunching over a little bit, looking a little bit more like Mickey Rooney these days, but he's doing all right. Rob, you have a chance to make it a tie, throw in a totally different submission entirely, or a vote, or make it a runaway for Mr. Arum.
Oh no, listen, it's got to be the rightful fucking king, the Bob Father. I remember as a child reading an article, I didn't fully understand what they were talking about, but you know the way they used to do these like quotes at the back of the Ring magazine. Such a guy said this about someone, and it was like some fighter had said about Don King and Bob Arum. It was like, Don King and Bob Arum are cockroaches. If there was a nuclear holocaust, two things would survive: cockroaches, Don King, and Bob Arum. And here we are in 2024, and this motherfucker's 90-something years of age in the ring.
Evil never dies, Rob. Evil never dies.
An absolute disgrace, and he's never letting the fucking British board referee one of his fighters again. Amazing, man. And he was probably calm after having an edible at that stage. So fucking the Bob is a legend, man. An absolute fucking legend. And the day he leaves the sport is going to be a sad day. Probably not for the fighters under him, but for the rest of us.
Yeah.
So much for your dream of having Teofimo Lopez fight on your shores.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got to give this one to the Bob Father. Praise be to you, sir, and all of your curmudgeony 93 years old and everything that you still have left to give. We commend you, sir. This week's Bellew of the Week winner. I would also like to thank Ozzie Smith for stopping in today, as well as Dez, Andy Patterson, and Rob Kelly. I've been your host, Matt DiGelinardo. We will be with you next week to review this 5-on-5 card, as well as preview a couple of weeks of action, as we were going to be taking the 9th off, although we might do a call-in show that Friday or Saturday. We'll see how it goes. But you folks have a great week ahead. We appreciate everyone that was in the chat today. I'm sorry I didn't run through it. We also appreciate everyone on the Patreon. If you would like to join up and take part in all the fun there, including the chat, all the little side goodies we don't talk about, as well as the opportunity to be in our prediction league, you can sign up through patreon.com/boxingasylum. But you folks take care of yourselves, and we will see you next week.
We'll never forget.
Golly, that's good happening.
Go to animals!
We want to be honest, yeah?
Crying like a little bitch. I've never met a fucking wank that can fight me.
I fell asleep.
You're a fucking bum. You're a fucking asshole.
Rumpo fucking Stiltskin.
But allegedly, Oscar Rivas has failed a test.
7-year ain't. 7-year ain't.
I will fucking smash fucking you.
I hope you fucking die.
Be safe.
I love boxing sounds. Simple as that.